Welcome to the most in-depth AI automations course on YouTube. By the end of this video, you're going to be extremely confident in implementing AI into literally any business model. And I can only say that because I've spent the last 5 months using the exact templates I'm giving you today to automate systems in 10 plus US businesses. So yeah, this will not be a light one, but it is legit. In part 1, we're going to cover the principles of AI, systems, and then building systems with AI so that you finally understand how this technology works on a fundamental level and you can actually build valuable stuff with it. And then in part 2, I'm gonna give you my exact automations project template. I'm gonna give you my workflow setup, my agent setup, and my building process, all of which took like 5 months to create, so that you can start building automations with this stuff today. And there's gonna be 3 different levels to the automation, so beginner, intermediate, and advanced. That way you can learn from start to finish how to build these complex automations that create insane value. And then finally, in part 3, I'm going to break down multiple real running automations that I've built across my businesses and 10 plus other businesses. So you can see how this stuff creates value right now as we speak. So I cannot wait. I have never been this excited for a video that I've made. So lock in, grab some coffee, and let's get right into it. Welcome, my friends, to part 1 of this course, the principles module. Now, if you really just want to skip ahead and go get the tactics and all my processes and frameworks, go ahead. It's in part 2, execution. But I highly recommend you watch this. This is my secret. This is really the sauce. This is what I do not think you will find anywhere else on YouTube, at least at this moment. I hope this will be the most valuable video you watch this month, maybe even this year. That would be amazing. I pray for that. But let's jump right into it. What is AI? How do we understand it so that we can actually use it? The cool part about AI is it's like hiring a brand new employee. So to get the most out of an employee, you have to understand them, their strengths and weaknesses and how they work. But here's the difference. When you understand how, let's say, Claude works, you don't just unlock the leverage of one employee, you unlock the leverage of thousands, infinite Claudes. So if you don't understand Claude, none of them are that useful. But as soon as you do understand AI, or in this case Claude, you unlock thousands of usefulness points from him and pennies on the dollar. Like I don't think we realize us, normal, right? Average people, not kings, not powerful, famous, whatever. We've never had this much leverage available to us ever in the history of humanity. But you have to seek to understand. One of my favorite verses is this. The beginning of wisdom is this. Get wisdom. Though it costs you all you have, get understanding. And so I don't just want to make shiny, kind of cool looking stuff that doesn't work for anyone. I want to understand this technology. I want to get it so that I can leverage it and create amazing things in this world. And obviously, these verses are talking even deeper about the wisdom of the Lord, the fear of the Lord. So if you haven't read the Bible yet, highly recommend that you do. And that is the true wisdom is fear of the Lord. But it applies in this scenario as well. Don't just follow the shiny videos. Understand the technology. Don't be lazy. And you'll be crazy how much everything changes. But that being said, do not worry. I do not care about the deep technicals. I don't want to build my own AI model. I want to be the driver. I want to be the Max Verstappen, the F1 driver, the fastest man in the world who can use these machines. I don't care about building them. I care about using them. So I want to learn just enough to drive like crazy, nothing more. I don't care about building an engine. I want to drive that sucker. But in order to drive, you do need to understand the machine that you're driving. So what does it mean to actually drive AI? What is being an F1 elite driver when it comes to AI? And I think it's as simple as this. The ability to give AI the exact inputs it needs to get the exact outputs you want. No more, no less. We'll talk about this throughout this entire course, but this is the goal. So get used to me referring to this a lot. All right. What is AI? How does it even work? Disclaimer, I'm ignorant on many things, and this is a very simplified version, but like I said, it helps me drive, which is why I'm sharing it with you guys. And the way I see AI is like autocomplete on steroids. It is not a magic genie, although it does feel like it sometimes. It is a guessing machine. And it is getting very good at guessing. It's getting better and better. But essentially what happens is you give it words, which have meaning in real life. It guesses about what you mean, and then it guesses about what you want, and then it tries to give you that output. It's guess. And this can be in the form of words, code, commands, etc. But if you say, I want a dope website, it's going to guess what you mean by dope, what you mean by website, and it's going to try to give you a dope website. And so the better these models get, the better the outputs are going to be. But your job is this, the context. And so if you tell AI, like, I did it, it has no clue what you're talking about. If you say, I cooked it, it starts to understand a little bit more. If you say, I finally cooked it, or I finally cooked pasta, or the final full context, I finally cooked pasta for my late grandmother's secret pasta recipe. I got it right. My family loved it, and they all teared up around the dinner table. That has meaning. That has full context. It's technically the same as I did it, but now we all know what you're talking about and the full meaning behind it. And that's the skill of AI, helping it guess better. Now, how it actually guesses is actually really cool. And if you understand this, this will make so much more sense with AI. And there's a video called Large Language Models Explained Briefly. It is highly technical. I don't really care that much about this, but if you want to, go watch it. I've watched it a few times. But what happens is you give it a sentence, right? Paris is a city in blank. Based on the model that they've trained it on, like trillions and trillions of data, it gives it probabilities for what the right answer it thinks is. And so it's going to say France. And so this is how AI works. It says Paris is a city in France. It takes that guess. Then it feeds all of that back into AI and it guesses again. Paris is a city in France and then it takes all that and feeds it back into AI. And so the way it spits out every word is by re-putting in the entire batch of words. That's why our goal is so important. We want to give AI just enough context, but not too much, because that's how we waste tokens and we dilute our outputs. So yeah, AI just does this. It guesses each word and then it plugs it all back in and guesses the next one. And it's getting really good at it, which is why it feels magical. But here's a super dumbed down example of what we're doing. This is how I understand it. Let's say your friend says, I'm going home to walk my blank. Well, what do you reason he's going to walk? Based on your training data, your life, you're going to think probably dog, right? You're going to say, you know what? He's going home to walk his dog. Now, let's say that he says, I'm going home to blank. You don't know what he's going home to do. There's not enough context. And so you're like, you know what? I have no clue, but he's going home. I know that much. Now, what if he gives you too much context? I'm going to the pet store. I got a cat leash, lizard food, and some dog stuff. I love my pets. Haha. I try to take care of them. Haha. I'm going home to walk my blank. And you're like, dude, I don't know. Is he walking his lizard, his cat, his dog? Who knows? But this guy's kind of weird, right? This is how most people treat AI. They feed it their entire life story to try to make a website. And it's just way too much context. Okay, yeah. That wasn't so bad, was it, right? The deep AI stuff is over, even though I know that was not deep at all. This is what I care about. I want to know, how does what I just kind of showed you change what we do? I'm not in the business of making a bunch of technical crap. I'm in the business of providing value. How do us as business owners, as entrepreneurs, use this stuff? What does this short engine lesson change how we drive AI? That's what I want to do. I want to change your behavior so you get better outputs. Well, now you should understand that this is why our goal is so important. Give the exact input, the sweet spot for what you want to get out. And this is a skill. It takes time. But that's what I want to teach you. Number 2, knowing where you want to go, knowing the output you want, it's not a binary thing, right? It's the clearer you get. So the clearer you are on exactly what you want, and then how you start is extremely important. Just like how autocomplete works, the first words you type direct it down what it's going to give you the results. So if I say, what is the name? It's going to give you names because you start off by asking, what is the name? Basically, how you start is so important because it's autocomplete on steroids. And so if you do not know where you're going and you don't get a good start, you're going to get bad results with AI. But if you have exact clarity on what you want, if you have examples of the website you want, if you're clear on everything you want included, the better chance you're going to get to go there. But if you just say, hey, AI, give me a dope website, it's going to give you the same slop it gives everybody else. So the better output clarity, the better start you give it, the better starting prompt, the better it's going to do. And we're gonna go over how to do all of that in tacticals, but these are just the principles. Number 3, probably the most important takeaway here. AI is built to give you the most probable answer. It is built to give you the average answer, which means it is amazing at things that have the right answer. If you say, what is 4 times 4? There's only one right answer. And so AI is amazing at this. But on the flip side, it is awful at things where there is no one right answer. And so if you were to ask Claude, like, hey, does this look good? If you asked me this, I'd be like, heck the frick no, bro. I would not hang this on my wall if you gave me $1 million. But this painting sold for 137 mil, by the way. So to some people, this is a dope painting. But my definition of a dope painting is not this, which is why it's really hard to do kind of subjective stuff with Claude, is because we all have different meanings of the words that we're giving Claude. And based on how he was trained, he has different definitions of what a dope website looks like. And it might mismatch from your definition of a dope website. And so what does this translate to? Well, AI is incredible at pattern recognition, at research, at summarization, at searching, converting or repurposing existing kind of subjective stuff, sorting big volume, big data, repeating tasks accurately, rough drafts of creative tasks, it's great at that, and basic coding. Not the problem solving, or not the like creative side of coding, but kind of just like the objective side. Really anything that you can easily explain to it what right looks like and what wrong looks like with very little room for discrepancy, it is good at. But it is awful at things like creative writing, really anything super creative, anything meant to be experienced by humans. Anything that needs to be fresh or new, it's bad at because it's literally giving you the average of everything in the past. So it's hard for it to be new. So music, art, content, writing, etc. Although it can trick you into thinking that it's good because it's putting out the amalgamation of past creative work in the past. So how do you actually like think about this in the right way when it comes to automations and plugins? Well, it's this. When you ask yourself, will AI be good at blank? You want to imagine a slider. So the closer the slider is to math, the better AI will be. The closer it gets to art, the worse AI is going to be. And here's the secret sauce. You don't want to rate the macro tasks. So if you were to ask me, KJ, is AI good at YouTube thumbnails? I can't answer that as far as the macro because there's so many different sliders for each subtask. And so here's the real, guys, this, if you get this, man, it's balling. Break down the big task into smaller tasks and then rate each step. And also, I'm going to show you guys how AI will do this for you, which is crazy in part 2. But if you were to ask me, KJ, is AI good at creating YouTube thumbnails? Here's what I would tell you. For finding outlier thumbnails and videos around topic, yes. For analyzing and comparing which elements are best for thumbnails, yes. For making a bunch of mockups, yes. For taking the actual pictures, no. For composing the elements, no. For finishing touches, no. These are all things that really influence the taste of the thumbnails. And so it's good for half of the thumbnail process, but not good for the other half. And that's where you can really get crazy results with AI by understanding what it's good at and what you should do. So like I said, I'm going to show you guys, like literally in the setup I'm giving you for this entire course, I have Claude rate what it thinks it's good at and what it thinks you should focus on. So I'm literally going to help you guys do this with the Claude MD I'm going to give you later. But this is so important. Feel free to watch that back if you need to get this. This is the leverage with Claude, is by getting that. Now, number 4, because of number 3, because the fact that AI is built on averages, it is not inherently creative. Caveat, it can do some creative domain things, just not great. So if everyone's using what AI considers to be a dope website, then it's average. It's no longer creative. And so AI is creative if you were the only person using AI, but then everyone uses it and it's no longer cool. It's like trends. It's kind of like in school when all the cool kids would do some sort of thing, and then the not cool kids like me would catch on and start wearing you know, the silly bands are wearing like a certain type of socks or something. And then all the cool kids quit doing it because the uncool kids like me started doing it. That is happening exponentially fast with AI because it's just copying people. It's not really creative. Now, this is so important. Please lock in for this. By learning how to prompt AI, you can get better outcomes, that you can get more alpha. So there's extreme alpha, meaning like edge or value, from learning how to context AI well. So if you just say, build me a dope website, you will get bang on mediocre average. But if you get better and better at contexting, better at driving the machine, then you can get better results that are further on the curve to being like better, right? Just imagine there's one side of this, and this is like a super amazing, you know, valuable website. By doing better context, you can get better results up to a certain point. Do I ever think AI will be better than like the world's best website designer? No, never. But you can get pretty good. You can get better than most people with AI. And my favorite quote is this. I came up with it. I don't know. How can AI truly think outside the box when it is the dang box? Everything that we do as humans is an experience. Like, this is why people drink beer, right? It's not because it's like freaking hydrating. It's because it makes you feel a type of way. We go to movies because we want to feel like the experience. And so since AI really is just math, it's really bad at creating things that make us feel stuff. That is the human element, the experience. And so an old tweet of mine is, AI has about as much taste as a white rapper. Now, it's just a joke, guys. If you're a white rapper, don't get offended. But it's a really good analogy because what do most white rappers do? They try to say as many words as possible, pronounce every word right, and it just lacks a lot of taste. Versus other rappers that have a more culture than us white people, they're able to make songs that you sometimes you don't even know what they're saying, but they feel epic. And so that's the problem with AI is it lacks taste. But you can help it with context get a little bit better taste. Just know that it maxes out. And so one thing that I feel like I run into a lot is I hit a wall with AI where it's like it gets way better, and then all of a sudden I just cannot get it to go past this certain level of like good. And that's because I feel like I'm hitting the wall where I just need to implement human taste. So cool. This is what this course is going to teach you to do, by the way, is to teach you to go from here being like bang on average with AI to getting like really good results that honestly 99% of people can't get even with AI. So here is the reminder. The true value of AI does not lie in what it can do necessarily, but it lies in what it can take off your plate so that you can do the stuff that really matters. The value is in the opportunity cost. So I can spend all day, every day, really like 50 plus hours on this mural board you're watching. Not automated at all. I did all of it myself because this is what matters. This is the taste. This is why you're watching this video right now instead of some other AI slop, is because, man, this Casey dude is freaking weird. He's funny sometimes because he's so stupid. And his mural boards are pretty entertaining, even though they're kind of lame. This is the power of AI. It does all this other stuff in my life so that I can make these silly mural boards. And guess what? It's kind of working, guys. Like this video actually has over 300K views now. So love you guys. You guys are amazing. All right, number 5. You have to be in the loop. So AI is getting really dang good at guessing, but it's still guessing. So what happens is if you're not in the loop, when you give AI an input and it spits out an output, and then that output becomes AI's next input, and then that becomes another output, which becomes the next input, AI is going to loop itself into slop oblivion. This is why I do not like the slash goal or slash loops or whatever. AI will get better over time, but right now you have to be in the loop to fix the trajectory. So you might start off in the right direction, but AI can make a bunch of slop and then get way off track. And the more complex your systems are, the more this is going to happen. And so do you have to use this for one-shotting some silly little thing? No. But if you're building real systems or applications that people are going to pay money for, you got to be in the loop. You have to. And these companies that are saying that they're not in there and the these AI agents are creating everything are just honestly lying. So there has to be a human in the loop. And when you do that, AI becomes insanely magical. Number 6, AI lacks what matters most. It does not have God-given agency. Despite the name agent, it does not have agency. It does not have God-given creativity. Now, dispute me if you want, right? You believe whatever you want. I believe that God created us in his image. God is the ultimate creator. When I look at the trees, when I look at creation, I am in awe of how good our God is. The fact that we're breathing right now is a gift. And he has given us that gift to create inside of us. That's why people are able to create rockets to Mars and create amazing paintings and videos and Ocean's 11 movies, you know? God-given creativity. And AI does not have that. It just copies past examples of that. It is a watered-down version of the beautiful state of humanity. And so it will never be able to replicate you. Keep in mind that. Now, if you don't put in the work and you don't do anything useful with your life, then AI is going to replace you. But AI can never replace these mural boards, and I'll prove that in the future because AI is not me. AI is a blob of all previous humans' data, and when you mix all colors together, what do you get? Kind of like just dark brown or black. But you are completely opposite, right? You are uniquely one of one. And so, don't ever forget that. Do not be discouraged. AI cannot replace you. Hopefully that was encouraging. All right, now what? We just finished the first principle module. Things are about to get a little bit deeper after this. I'm not gonna lie. This was kind of just a little teaser. Now we're going to head into the principles of actually automations, which I cannot wait to show you guys. This is this is my secret sauce. But all of this is to, once again, turn you into the 0.001% driver. So let's go over to principles of automation. I will see you guys over there. Let's get it. All right, welcome to the second principle module, principles of systems and automations. Now, apps, plugins, skills, automations, all these shiny things you hear about, they are all just systems. And when you learn how to think in terms of systems and leverage, almost anything becomes possible. Elon is a great example. That dude lives and breathes systems and leverage. And he's a trillionaire. So let's get a little closer to that, why don't we? And we become real entrepreneurs when we stop thinking in terms of tactics and identities, like, oh, I'm a YouTuber, I'm a copywriter, I'm a growth operator. And instead, we start thinking in problems, in systems, and leverage. And that's what I want to share with you today. You want to make money? We do that by creating value. We create value by solving problems. You create more value by solving problems easier, faster, better, cheaper. How do we do that? By building leveraged systems, plugins, automations, software. Man, when you learn how to do this, everything changes. And hopefully you see that on my channel. My videos have been blowing up all because I stopped thinking like a tactic hunter and I started thinking, how do I solve problems with the leverage of AI? I'm gonna give you guys my secrets today. So let's get into it. Principle number 1, systems. A system is just this. It's inputs that get processed into an output. And this is all happening inside of an environment, and we have feedback from running the system to improve the system. And so it's really that simple. The best way to look at it, in my opinion, is examples. So let's say we're gonna cook some lasagna. So the output we want is an incredible tasting lasagna. That is the desired output that we're trying to get to. That is what we're building the system for. We do that by taking ingredients, we process them by mixing them together, cooking them, doing whatever. This happens inside of a kitchen, and after we follow the process, we get an output. How do we get a better output? Well, we do feedback, right? We taste the lasagna and we say, needs more salt, or it's a little undercooked. And we can improve the output by changing the inputs, so getting better ingredients, or changing the process, right? How we process them. And this all happens inside of the kitchen we're working in. And so I used to watch this show with my wife called I think it was Next Level Chef. And if they took an L, they had to cook in this disgusting basement. And if they won, they got to cook in the state-of-the-art kitchen. And so that shows how the environment can really play a factor on your output. So what the heck does that have to do with anything, KJ? Why are you talking about lasagna? Well, this is how I think about life. This video you're watching right now, if you're watching it on YouTube or school, this is how I made this video, is I have a system for creating these things. I have a desired output that I want to put out. I have inputs that I put into the system. So what is the thing that I'm giving? What is the problem I'm solving? Where is the existing market demand? These are inputs. And I take those inputs and I come up with a title, thumbnail, intro, body segments. I record this using a certain tool, editing, tags, upload. And then my feedback are what you guys think, right? The views, the likes, the comments, the CTR, average view duration, CPM. And based on those metrics, I make changes, right? Add this to the title, less saturation, talk slower. Y'all know I talk like a crackhead. I'm sorry, I'm working on it. But yeah, this is a system. And same with my finance plugin, which has, generated me tons of amazing leads and helps a lot of people. This is happening in the environment of Claude. So it happens in Claude. So how Claude works determines how I make the plugin. And the output is a fully customizable, private finance dashboard plugin. And so it adds these kinds of things of value, right? Saves people money. That's awesome. And so I built a system to do that, right? We input the user transactions. It processes them using the plugin. So this is the system I built to be the process. And yeah, the iterations are me improving the system based on your guys' comments. Pretty cool. Now let's get a little bit deeper. I told you guys, I'm gonna give you guys the real stuff, but it's going to be kind of deep. So my first ever application that I'm still building called Signal, and we have real paying users on this. Shout out to the person who bought the yearly plan yesterday. You're amazing. But these users have a problem that requires human depth and perspective. Therefore, they want a YouTube video. So they don't just want to ask AI, they want to see what a human has created around this problem. A good example is how to speak. So I'm learning how to speak better for you guys to make these videos better. And that is something that is hard for AI to explain because, well, it can't speak. And so I wanted to solve this problem for myself of not knowing how to find the best videos. And so I give AI this input, right? So context on my problem. The output I want is the best videos to solve this problem. And the process is Signal. The main, the application is it does context to query reasoning. It API calls the correct parameters. Anyway, I won't get into the details, but basically I made this system to give me an output and now people pay me to use this system. And obviously this is just one feature inside of Signal, but this is the main core value prop. And you guys are gonna learn how to do this today. So this course that I decided to give this for free, so no one bought this. The course that you're watching is my system for creating systems, which is kind of meta, but that's why this course is, I think, so valuable. And it is this: you are the input. This course is the process. So by you watching this course and taking the action steps, this is all happening on Earth, by the way, laws of physics, you are able to then go make valuable systems that you can sell, make tons of money, change your life or business, whatever. And the feedback is what you guys tell me in the comments and the emails and the school. I read everything. So thank you guys for your feedback. So couple useful notes on systems while we're here. The process section in a system is usually just a bunch of smaller systems chained together. And so think about Tesla, for example. The input are the raw materials. The outputs are finished Tesla cars. But inside of that macro system, there's a lot of small systems for how they make the wheel wells and just all this other stuff. Another example is I have a thumbnail system inside of my YouTube system. So how I make thumbnails is a system inside of the bigger system of how I make YouTube videos. Number two, learning systems thinking is mandatory in the AI era. This is the only way computers think, in and out. And so the better you understand systems, the better you will be with AI. Three, as powerful as systems thinking is, it will not magically give you creativity, passion, or grit required to make a system actually work. If so, every single software engineer would be $1 billion founder, but they aren't. And so that's kind of the thing with AI, is now that we can all be like, mediocre junior developers, writing the code isn't the value really. It's knowing what to code. That's always been what determines who makes $1 billion. And so this is important, but you still have to have the judgment. Number four, desired output, desired output, desired output. We're going to go in detail on this in a second, but do not cope with a cool process. Do not cope with a cool assembly line. What do people care about? They care about the car. The output is what matters, okay? And sadly, this is 99% of the AI space right now. And the secret is like, don't be cool. Be useful. Produce value. That's my goal, at least for my life. So principle number 2, leverage. Getting more output per input. This is Entrepreneurship 101. If you don't know this one, man, you are missing out. And this is going to be hopefully life-changing for some of you guys. So by adding different forms of leverage into your systems, you're able to get more for less. This is why everyone's freaking out about AI. It's not because the clankers are cool. It's because of the leverage that it gives us. So instead of you having to spend 10 days building a website, you can send off 2 prompts. So this much input, insane output. That's why AI is so important. But in order to get the most out of AI, you have to understand what leverage is. And this is how we make big money, right? We talked about this in the last module. So for probably the first time ever, because sadly our school system really fails us as entrepreneurs, right? I want to cover different forms of leverage and what they look like incorporated into systems. And then we'll talk about AI leverage. And then we're going to incorporate them in part 2 of this entire course, execution. So yeah, it's going to get juicy. These are the 3 forms of leverage that I kind of bucket leverage into, which helps me a lot. The first is labor. So this is using someone else's energy towards your goals. This is the oldest form of leverage, right? Back in the day when the Egyptians built the pyramids, they had tons of slaves building them. Oh Lord, what is this? Quit this. That is labor leverage. Other human beings working for your goals, your agency, working towards your outputs. And the way that I like to think about the leverage gained is energy times skill times other forms of leverage. And so if you just have an employee who's just like moving atoms around, right? Like moving things around your room, not that much skill. But if you have an employee who's incredibly skilled at, say, like, I don't know, editing, something like, shout out to Caleb who's editing this video. If he edits a video, he might take him an hour. A bad editor would edit the same video and they would get less views. So same input, wildly different outputs for Caleb because he has skill. And this is why people hire skilled employees. And then if those skilled employees have other forms of leverage, well, then you're getting a lot of leverage out of hiring this person, right? So if you hire someone who's incredibly good with AI, like, also shameless plug, we will build AI systems for you if you don't want to do this yourself. Shout out to my agency 780, book a call with us. We'll build custom software for you. If you hire us, you get the leverage because we are using other forms of leverage. So what are those other forms? Well, the second form is copies, which sounds lame, but this is the secret. This is the sauce. So the biggest leverage we get as humans is copies of previous systems or solutions. And so entertainment, right? That is a solution to boredom for humans. Information is copies of different instructions for humans of how to think and act. Code is instructions for computers of how to act. AI is like code 2.0. So it's code that can reason. So it's kind of like a weird form of like labor leverage too, because it can solve problems that it wasn't specifically coded for, which is crazy. But you accessing these models is just you accessing a copy of Claude. So someone built this model and now we all benefit as long as we pay the Claude overlords $20 a month, right? And the last form is tools and machines. So these multiply physical effort. So because someone came up with the invention of a tractor, we can all benefit from having tractors, as long as we pay them money, of course. Once again, that's the whole leverage, right? Now, the cool part is digital copies leverage. So the upfront input cost of creating these copies is massive. So writing a book, me recording this video is going to take 50 hours to make and then more to record it. A lot of input. But the cost of distribution is a fraction. So this video you're watching right now could be seen by 1 billion people without me doing any extra work. So if YouTube was like, man, KJ's cooking, dude. Like, let's send this to everybody on earth. I do no extra work and 1 billion people get this information. Versus back in the day, if I had to teach you one-on-one, I'd have to give this 2-hour-long talk to every single person. It is so unleveraged, but that's the power of copies. And so the person that invented the tractor unlocked a ton of leverage. He can sell the tractor. Me making this video, Kendrick recording Good Kid, Mad City, right? He recorded the album once, but now they can copy it and everybody can benefit from listening to that epic album. So yeah, writing the book, writing the software, training the AI model, this is all digital copies. So the effort and input goes like this. So to go from zero, to go from nothing to having a thing that works requires all the effort. That's literally it. And then distributing it requires so little effort in comparison. This is like the 0 to 1 effect. And if you want to see this kind of shown in a more typical way, this is it, right? This explains exponential growth. It's because to get something that works, to build a system that gets the right output, that is the hard part. Distributing it, scaling it up, that is when it gets a lot easier. It's still not easy, but it is a lot easier in comparison. This is also why so many people fail with AI, is because I will show you guys how to use AI to build the system, but AI is kind of most useful in copying what you've already built and getting more of the thing that you've already designed or built, whatever. The third is money. So money just allows you to buy future instances of 1 and 2. So with money, you can hire people. With money, you can buy more copies, whatever. Or you can lend to people for them to buy more 1 and 2. And so if you use capital, if you use money to buy a stock, well, you are benefiting from someone else buying these things. So when you buy into the SpaceX IPO, you are giving Elon more money to buy these things and to make more of these things. And so you benefit from it if he succeeds. This is how the world works. I hope you guys are like, is this clicking? This is what no one's taught you. Seriously, this is it. This is getting past all the hype and looking at like, how do billionaires become billionaires? This is it, guys. Now, just knowing this alone is not going to make you a billionaire, clearly, or else I'd have more money. But this is the start. This is how you play the game. I'm explaining the rules to the game so that we can play it. Now, here's a goofy example that really helped me get leverage. This is Chick-fil-A. If you're not from America, man, I'm sorry for you because America is the greatest country on earth. But Chick-fil-A is one of the best food that we have in America. And what's funny is my friend Luca is from London. He's actually staying with us right now. We've been taking him to Chick-fil-A almost every day because of how much he loves his chicken burger. Back on track, they use leverage in every single form. So this system to create this chicken sandwich they're copying a system. The recipe, the inputs, the type of chicken, how long they cook it, what ingredients. That is a system that they've copied across the country. How they built the stores is a system. The application, right? Code, software, copies. The labor, how they train the labor using information copies. It's all leverage. And because they have all these forms of leverage, guess what? They make $22 billion with a B selling fried chicken. But it's because they spent 70 years nailing one simple output better than anyone else. A good chicken sandwich at scale. So yeah, they have scaled up like crazy, and now they're doing $22 billion a year with chicken. So anytime you go to Chick-fil-A, remember this example and think about all the leverage. I actually used to have a friend who worked on the Chick-fil-A software, but he worked on the software that they had in the store for their like assembly line of chicken. Like that's how freaking leveraged Chick-fil-A is. They're crushing it. So it's freaking crazy. How does this all tie back to AI? Well, there has never in the history of humanity been this much leverage available to the average bloke like me and you. So because of AI, we can now achieve massive leverage like people who always had all the power before. We can do this with AI. All right, but how? How do we actually leverage AI in a system? So let's first talk about how do we apply stuff. Now, quick warning here. This is a serious one. I'm about to contradict a lot of the stuff you see online, and I'm not saying I'm right. I could be wrong, but this is how I view the world. This is what has served me. And I'm gonna piss off probably some people because I'm gonna kind of call out some YouTubers and teachers, but I do not want to do this and like I'm better than them. It's more of like I feel like you guys are being lied to, and I want to show you guys the truth as far as I know it. I could be wrong, but just a disclaimer here. Now, I'm talking about this through the lens of value creation. So if you care more about just building stuff for fun, right? Like you're just having a good time, disregard what I'm saying, okay? This is only through the lens of solving problems. If you're just like having a good time playing around with AI for fun, keep doing it, man. I'm not here to shame you on that. That is how you learn. But we're gonna talk about value creation. One of my favorite quotes from Elon is they asked him what a young person should try to do. And he's like, try to be as useful as possible. And that's what I want to do. So step 0 in creating a system is deciding what system to build in the first place. And this is quite honestly the hardest step. If this step was easy, every single software engineer would be a billionaire. But they aren't because they can't figure out what to build. And so Elon says the most common error of a smart engineer is to optimize a thing that should not exist. Same with YouTubers. You can replace this with any single title. Yeah. Here's the evidence, right? Around 90% of all startups and tech startups ultimately fail. Crazy. Here's the problem. Once again, guys, I am a sucky entrepreneur. I don't have $1 million. So I can't even speak on this really myself, but I'm trying to learn. But I have one heuristic that has served me really, really well this year, which has allowed me to do these amazing things. So 500K views in 3 months in a brand new niche, first live app with real paying users and it actually works, and a community with on 20,000 people now since I made this mural. And I know that these aren't great indicators of like actually value creative, problem solved, but I can't really show you guys the DMs and emails I get, but hopefully you're one of the people who I have created value for, so this is proof in itself. Anyways, this is my heuristic. This is my threshold for evaluating whether or not I should build a system. And that is this. Is it valuable enough to me that even if no one else buys it or uses it, it was still worth the input to create it? And so this is it. If the value it adds to my life is greater than the upfront cost of creating the thing, so not just money, but like time, then it's good. And so basically, is the 0 to 1 cost worth it, even if it stays at 1? So if it doesn't go from 1 to 1,000, is it still worth it? And that helps me focus. And this helps me verify the idea from a few different angles. So first off, it helps me do ideas that have very low upfront time and capital. So it's cheap and fast to go from 0 to 1. Because guess what, guys? I don't have $1 million. So I don't have time and money to invest in ideas that may or may not work. And then second, only ideas that I would actually use survive. And what's cool is the bigger the problem is in my life, the more capital and time I can allocate to solve it. Because the more value it adds to me, well, the higher cost it can be and it still be worth it as far as my heuristic goes. Next, even if I have an idea that I think is dope, because it's built for me, if I don't use it after a week, then I know that it's trash and I just don't have to build it any further. And lastly, I only build it if I think the skill and insight gained would be worth it as well. So obviously, building these courses doesn't really do much for me besides, cementing my like knowledge, I guess. But I learn the skill even greater by doing these courses, which is why the only courses that I make are things that I want to learn the skill in. And what's funny about this heuristic is when you only make stuff that you would actually use, other people use it too. And so my videos get views and my app gets paying users because I only made it for me, which is kind of funny. So that's the first step in deciding what system to build. Now, step 1, once you know what to build, we have to get extreme clarity on the output of the system. And so you have to get very detailed. What do you want to see? And then also, what is the deeper why that you even want that output? And so we'll go about this in the execution. I'll show you guys how to get AI to interview you to answer these questions. But just remember, the market cares about output, not your process. What comes out of the machine? That is what matters. I'd rather have a boring process and an incredible output, then I would have an incredible process, boring output, which this module alone should be proof of this. So far, we've not touched Claude once. I've not built a single vibe-coded slop website, but I care about changing the way you think. I care about, this video might be boring, but the outcome that you get from watching it should hopefully be incredible. And that's what I want to do. There's some more stuff about this if you want, but basically, like, avoid these videos about Notion, Obsidian, like AI operating system setups, because they're only building it to get views. They don't actually use these things. And if they do, the outputs that come out of them are typically not great because they're just trying to build a cool process, not the outcomes. And fundamentally, a teacher can only really teach what they have done themselves. This is the problem I have at business college. Most of my teachers have never owned a business. Not to say that they can't teach good stuff, but I want to listen to people who have done what I want to do, right? So, step 2, you achieve the desired outcome by any means possible. I know this is going to piss off some people. What I mean by this is, if you want to be a good YouTuber, do not use AI to make your YouTube videos. If you cannot get a video that gets a lot of views without AI, the chance of you getting a video with views with AI is extremely low. There's 2 types of people who are using AI. And the first type is a process worshiper. So they say, hey, look, my YouTube channel is 100% automated by AI. It's crazy. It's insane. Editors are dead. YouTube has changed forever. And the video that they actually make in their video gets like no views. It's all about the process, how cool the machines are. But those who are output focused, the process sucks. It's boring. Guys, if you watch me make these mural boards, man, it is boring. It takes 50 plus hours, but it gets an amazing value. And once again, I can't show you the actual value because views are not value, guys. You could slap a grandmother and get 1 million views and not change anybody's life. But it is hard for me to quantitate life change. So hopefully you personally have experienced value through my creations, and that enough is proof alone. And once again, I am not the end all be all, guys. I suck at this. I'm just trying to explain how I view the world. Do not be process blind. This is what I mean by this. Most people look at the like assembly line. They're like, wow, AI did the whole video. That is sick. But the actual outcome is not cool. Versus a really boring process, but a great outcome. And people are like, dude, gross. Get with the times, man. You don't have automated thumbnails. This is what process blindness looks like. Please don't fall for it. Another good example. I absolutely love Nate, but I feel like his videos can be misleading. I don't think he's doing it on purpose. But he is saying, look how great AI editing is, guys. I'm getting 200K views on this video. But here's the thing. He's getting those views because it's in an AI niche. If you were to go offer this editing, like if you were to use this editing style and offer it to people, you would not get paid anything for it. So the output is only cool because AI made it, but it's not good editing. And so if you were to use this outside of the AI niche, it's going to flop for you. So anyways, I really pray that this makes sense. We want to care about the outcome, not the process. What is actually happening? Long story short, there is no point in automating and using AI inside of a system that doesn't get desired output. There's no point in scaling a system that doesn't work. And so the highest leverage thing that you can do is by putting in maximum effort, so doing things manually until you actually get the outcome you want, and then using AI. So I've designed over like 2,000 thumbnails in my day. That used to be my full-time job. So the only reason I know how to use AI in my thumbnails is because I know how to make good thumbnails without it. And so that is the kind of lie I want to free you guys from. You have to get the output first. You can use AI to help you learn, but you have to actually do the work. And so phase 0 is basically, this system doesn't work. Phase 1 is, hey, this system worked, but it takes a lot of work from me. And then phase 2, which we'll talk about in a second, or phase 3 is actually decreasing your input. So that's step 3. Once the system works, that's when you add leverage. So you make the system work, get the output you want, write the email, write the marketing thing, make the video, build the application, whatever, get the output, and then you add in AI leverage. And so phase one, system doesn't work. Phase two, hey, look, it works, but we have to do a lot of effort. This is where you add in all of the leverage. So now the system works and I don't have to do much. Here's a simple example. I used to sell a high-ticket program, and I used to sell the program myself on the calls. And so I learned how to get people to close into my program, so pay me money for my program. And then I turned what I learned into a script that I hired salespeople to run for me. So I used to have to take every call and I would make money, but then I would take a fraction of the calls and I would still make the same money because I added leverage of labor and I added leverage of copies, meaning like my system for taking sales calls for my offer. Really, really cool. And so, yeah, guys, I know that was dense. Hopefully you're still watching this video, but now hopefully this is helpful. I really pray that it is. But now we can actually go do this. We're going to spend the rest of this course. So in part 2 execution, we're going to actually do this. The next course is going to be like adding more like AI leverage, like the next principal module. But the entire part 2 is going to be doing. Don't worry, we're going to be doing this. So yeah, phase 4 is adding more leverage. We won't talk about this much, but basically you just bring money in and you scale. So in recent news, SpaceX just IPO'd and they're hitting phase 4 like crazy. So now that they figured out how to launch rockets that actually get to space, they are saying, hey, give us a lot of money and we'll launch a bunch of rockets because we'll buy more people and we'll buy more copies and yeah, we'll make more rockets. So yeah, that is phase 4, scaling, which is really cool. This is why, as a software developer, as a founder, once you hit that 1, the VC gang piles in. So once you get a working system, everybody wants to invest in your stuff because they want to see that they want to see it scale. Yeah, so pretty cool. So how do we leverage AI leverage? I know this was a lot, but hopefully, if this was helpful, please leave a comment or send me an email. So I'll make more of this if it is helpful. If this is just boring, I'll go back to doing shiny stuff. But just let me know. Now what? Well, we're going to get into building systems with AI. So like we just talked about, the real leverage in adding AI into a system is phase 3, where you're adding in leverage after it already works. But the cool part about AI is that it can reason, and so it can help you get to phase 2. It can help you build the system, but it's a different way of thinking about it. And so that's what we're going to talk about in the next module. So I will see you guys over there. Let's get to it. All right, welcome to the third principal module, how to build systems with AI. This is what I've been waiting to get to. We had to cover that other stuff first, but man, this is going to be epic because AI leverage is weird and it's hard to explain, which is why you've probably never heard it explained before. And I am not some philosopher genius, right? But I be talking to the clankers. Trust me, bro. 8 to 10 hours a day for months, I be talking to the bots. And all I want to share is my perspective that I have found truly useful, meaning has created insane value in my life and business. So yeah, let's get into it. Why is AI leverage so weird? Well, number one, it can reason. And so it kind of feels like labor leverage a little bit. Like it can think a little bit, but it's still just math. And so some stuff it royally drops the ball on and you're like, what in the world? How did you not get that right? So it's like labor leverage, but it's technically copies leverage because someone built this model and you're like copying this like fake employee. And so basically, if you treat it like a human, you're overselling it. It doesn't have perspective and it lacks the human touch. But if you treat it like just a computer, you're underselling it because it can reason. And so a good example of why this thing is not, because a lot of you guys are probably like, well, it's going to become, sentient and all this. I don't believe that crap. Why? Because look at this. Look at this meme. Would AI have ever decided to put this meme right after what I just said? No. But I'm a human. I'm from Alabama. My granddad dips. I have perspective. I have taste. Therefore, I wanted to hit you with this meme to prove that, man, stuff is weird. And that's probably why you're watching this video. If you're still here, it's because I'm not going through a stupid AI slop slide deck. I'm giving you some raw crap. But KJ, one day it'll transcend, it will be creative, it'll have perspective, we're all screwed. I don't think so, because every model is going to make stuff like that model. So if we're all using Claude and we all ask it to do a task, doesn't matter how much context we give it, it's gonna do the task like Opus 4.8, right? And as humans, we like new stuff. Imagine your favorite song ever. What if you had to listen to it every hour on the hour for the rest of your life? You would probably hate that song. And that is because we like new stuff. We like unexpected. And AI is expected, which is why it's very hard for it to create incredibly tasteful things. Now, can it do some stuff pretty well? Absolutely. But when it comes to really good experience things that humans are going to use, like this video, it's very bad at. And remember, value is in comparison. AI slop will always be AI slop. So although this looks really good, or it used to look good, it became what? Sloppish. But now this is the new AI slop, even though it looks incredible comparatively, right? And soon this will be awful and there'll be something new. It's just like why there's trends in fashion, right? It's why we look at people from the 60s and we're like, oh, dude, what were they wearing? It's because it's comparison. Things change. And so this is why models are always going to be kind of average, because we all have access to the same model. Once again, values in comparison. If you had the iPhone 1 in 2007, you were a freaking legend, all right? Let me tell you, I was in middle school and people that had this were like instantly goated. But if you have this phone in 2026, right, you're gonna be shamed. It's the same phone. And so the comparison, what's happening in society, is more important than the actual like thing. So that's why AI is tough. AI will never replace actual human creativity, right? Debate me on this. I believe it from the Bible, right? So God created mankind in his own image. The image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. We are created to create. Look at God's beautiful creation. We get to create in his image. And that's why I don't think AI will ever fully replace just that raw spark of life. I don't know. The good news is it will replace everything else so that we can do more creative stuff. This is the good news. People are like, oh, AI is going to take jobs. Bro, so did the calculator. Did you know they used to have entire buildings of people who would be like one calculator, right? They'd all crunch these numbers. Thank God no one has to do that anymore because of the calculator. AI will do the same thing. It will get rid of some really boring stuff so we can do more amazing free will stuff. All right, KJ. Well, what the frick do we use AI for then if it's not good at this stuff? Well, I'll explain to you. The first is understanding, explaining things to you. And so as I was making this module in my office, my editor, Caleb, and best friend was editing something. He was building this insane model, but he was asking Claude questions on the technical tools. So Claude is helping him learn, but he is still the creator. As I was typing this, that's what he was doing. Same with you building systems. 2, researching. AI can help you find the best tools, the best copies of the latest information tools that you can use to build your systems. And so an example is I was working with one of my one-on-one clients and we're going to build this product for him so that it will save him $250 a month. And I asked AI to go look at each one of these features and tell me which tools should we use for this. Dude, normally this would have taken me like all day. It did this in 5 minutes. This is the leverage. It's so good. All right, cool. Number 3 is reasoning. So AI can think, and it's really good in poking holes in your plan. It helps you explore every options. The only caveat here is do this after you've already thought of stuff. This is it, right? So it's like labor leverage of skill. So it's like having a thinking partner. It is so good for. And you'll see in the build template later, but imagine hiring Claude as a thinking partner. He's still an employee. You're still the visionary. You're still the CEO, but he can think with you and help you come up with the better outcomes, which is epic. And 4, this is where things get pretty fun. This is using reasoning in your systems. So the first 3 were all about building the system. This is about it being inside the system. And so using basic reasoning at scale in your systems for your users to then use. So this is kind of like copies leverage. plus artificial skill leverage. It is awesome. A good example is the Signal app. And so input, user has a problem that they want to see videos on how to solve. They explain that to Claude, or to Signal, which uses Claude. That's the input. Then I have a skill, which I've programmed Claude to do, and he thinks about what queries he should run based on the instructions. And so I won't give you guys all that because that is literally like the core of my app. That is the money. And this is the output. So normally, if I was like to hire my mom and say, every time someone has a problem, take that problem and come up with 10 search terms. She could do it, right? She could totally do that. But she could service one user probably every 20 minutes. AI gives us basic reasoning at insane scale. I know this is a little bit tough to get, but this is the crazy leverage. So one of my quotes, and we'll go over this in a second, but the real leverage of AI is the unaverage application, or no, the creative application of average reasoning. And this is kind of a good example of that. Use case number 5, basic reasoning and commands. So this is like a virtual, I'm such an idiot, guys. Virtual VA, a virtual assistant. Oh my gosh. So basically doing literally anything that is closer to objective, so anything math related, so you can spend more time doing the subjective. So once again, writing code, right? Not the vision or the deep problem solving, but just the executing, translating your words into code on the screen. Summarizing, so reading stuff, summarizing it. Very average kind of creative stuff. So like writing an email, a YouTube title, it's good at that small task. Pattern and research analysis, running computer commands, all this good stuff. So an example is, this is not loading, but this is one of the skills that I actually we'll probably build this plugin in this course at some point. AI does all the research for my videos that I can come up with thumbnails and titles. It comes up with the keywords. It does all the research for the titles. It ranks the titles. It has literally given me the titles that have given me my last 2 viral videos. Epic. That's using all these things mentioned above to save me a lot of time. This is a project for one of our clients, and it is a pricing estimate for, he builds custom houses. He inserts the blueprints. We then go through and add in these custom like variables that he wanted in here. And then it gives him the takeoff and estimate. This has to take them like a week manually, but with AI, it can be done in a matter of literally minutes, which is crazy. But honestly, anything that you can think of that you would hire an assistant or a junior developer to do, AI can do. It is absolutely awesome. So the real leverage with AI is the unaverage application of average reasoning. But if we're honest, this is how it's always been, right? Think about McDonald's. They can hire high schoolers because the process of making a burger is not that hard. Someone made this system so simple and so easy, but they created it in a creative way that gets a lot of value. I know this is trippy because me and you have never had this amount of leverage before, but this is something that you really need to think about. And the first time I ever used Claude, these were my thoughts. You can pause it and read if you want, but I thought that was pretty cool, and a lot of things have come out to be true. But a couple of things I want to talk about is people will feel so good about doing something that they will cope for doing the right things. So AI makes it so easy to make a website, to make some emails, to do whatever. It gets outputs that you otherwise would have never gotten. But the problem is they're not the right outputs. They don't actually work. You don't actually get clients. You don't actually get views. And that's the issue. Everybody will be able to code, but very few will make successful apps. People will spend 95% of their time asking how to build something and 5% asking what they should build. This is bad. It should be the opposite, but I guess that's how it's always been. So anyways, there's some more like takes in there if you want to check those out. But yeah, what it really did is AI unlocked scalable reasoning, but it did not unlock true creativity. And a lot of times when people approach me for help with AI stuff, they're not getting results because they think it is fully creative. It is not, but it can reason. And so if you give it the right guidelines, which you'll learn how to do, it can do things for you, but you have got to think and create for yourself. And so the alpha is in the creative application of the scalable reasoning. How can you creatively use a very, 200 IQ person with not a whole lot of street smarts, how can you use that at scale to make value? But to be honest, this is how it's always been, right? Steve Jobs, this was him when he first made Apple. Whenever they fired him, they almost went bankrupt. They brought him back, and he made everything go crazy. The reason I'm showing you guys this is because they had the same engineers. So the same engineering talent, right? Real humans, not just AI, but like real creative humans were not able to create value because they lacked the vision and the agency. When Jobs was gone, things fell apart. When he came back, things went exponential. Because it's all about it's all about what you choose to use your reasoning on. That's what I'm trying to say. How you actually use the reasoning. So anyways, here is my optimistic prediction. AI will take over everything black and white, so we can work on stuff in full color. I know that sounds extremely cliche, but AI will take over doing all my research for these video thumbnails so that I can do what? Make a cool thumbnail. Like, that's the cool part about AI. And the problem that you run into with AI is you're trying to get it to do everything, and it can't. If you could tell AI, make me $1 million, make no mistakes, you'd have $1 million, but it cannot. You have to have that perspective and that agency. So KJ, how do we do this well? Like, how do we use AI like a non-goober? Well, I'll remind you, this is the goal, right? Figure out what to give AI so that you can get out what you want. So you have to figure out what you want, then figure out what to give it, figure out what instructions to tell it, and you get what you want. So to accomplish this, we need to do 3 things well. The first is context structuring. So how do we structure what we give Claude? The second is workspace setup. How do we make it easy for you to work with Claude? And 3, how do we understand giving Claude different roles? So the brain of the model, we can give him different kind of agent setups. So he can have different roles, and that can allow us to get bigger, juicier outputs. Number 1, context structuring. What is context? Well, it's just files and folders. So it's files, the actual stuff you give it, and then it's folders, how you structure and group those files. That is context. I like to break context into 2 different types. This helps me a lot. So the first is context clues. We covered this in the first module. Basically, you're explaining the situation in more detail to Claude so that he knows what you mean. So if I say, build me a dope website, he doesn't really know what dope means. But if I say, build me a website for this thing, it needs to look like this, here's the parameters, here's examples, now he knows what dope means to you, he can get a better outcome. And so this example is what we talked about earlier, right? Giving just the right context. The second is instructions. This is a specific direction on how Claude should do something the way you want it. This is also referred to as skills, which are now inside of plugins. But guys, it's all just text instructions. It's all just files. That's all that it is. And so here was my old skill for my second channel that I used to post daily, is I have a certain way I like Claude to do my YouTube titles. And so if I tell Claude, just base Claude, hey, give me a YouTube title, it's going to give me the most average cookie cutter title it can think of. But if I say, give me a YouTube title, and I give it some instructions for how it should create them, now I'm going to get a result that's closer to what I want. And so you're either giving him more context or you're giving him instructions, which are all just, once again, context, but I like to break it down and it makes things clearer. And so here's an example from my finance plugin. If you guys have used this for my last video, I gave Claude instructions for how it should create your finance dashboard when you run my skills. And so there are so many ways to create a finance dashboard, but I figured out the way that I think is very valuable. I gave Claude instructions, and I gave that to you so that Claude can use his reasoning and my instructions to build you something epic. So yeah, that is the kind of 2 different ways I break context into. Now, context and folder structuring. This is how you achieve the goal. So if we want to give Claude exactly what he needs, no more, no less, we have to learn how to structure context and folders. And so this is why folder structuring is so hot right now. There's a meme. It's because this is the key to unlocking efficiency and outputs with Claude. And so a good example of this is I used to have an email system that I ran for one of my marketing clients when I still did marketing full time. And I used to give Claude this 250-page PDF every time I went to write an email. And I kept wondering, why does he not get the testimonials right? He's not doing the testimonials good at all. And then I realized, whoa, I can break this 250 pages into different folders, different segments, and I made a testimonial folder. And so whenever Claude needed a testimonial, he didn't have 250 pages, he had 2 pages. And he knew where to find them because the folder was labeled testimonials. That is a simple way to get better outputs by structuring. So imagine it like this. I want you to imagine that you hire an assistant and you gave them a 1,000-page PDF with random words scrambled all across the pages. So not like there was any coherent thought to this PDF. It's just a bunch of random segments of random words with random meaning. That's level 0. Level 1. Now I want you to imagine you separate the PDF into different pages and files that are titled what they contain. So it's titled hey, here's a research paper on this. Hey, here's some past examples of what I did here, right? It's still one file, but it's at least, separated a bit. Now I want you to imagine that you separate those files into folders. And so you group these things in folders so that now if Claude or your assistant needs something, he doesn't have to look through a massive stack of papers. He goes and looks at the folder, right? Now, level 3, I want you to imagine that you have organized the text into files. You've organized the files into folders. You've organized folders into different filing cabinets. They're all separated. They're all labeled in ways that are focused on the output you want. And then you give your assistant specific instructions on where everything is. This is how you save tokens. This is how you get good outcomes. This is what is happening with Claude behind the scenes. Now, as these AI models get better and better, you have to do less and less of this, but the skill of knowing how to structure context is one that will serve you, I think, for the rest of time with AI. So you should get as good as possible at making it as easy as possible for AI to do what it wants, what you want it to do. So this is how you become powerful with AI. And I'm going to give you my templates for this. Don't worry. I'm going to give you my filing cabinets that I've spent months creating, but you have to know why I'm doing this and why you should learn it. So do not let it fool you. This is a skill. I'm not going to lie. This is really, really tough. And there are levels to it. I'm not anywhere close to the peak. But if you just understand what I just showed you, you will be in the top 1%, maybe 0.1%. Because most people are just giving their entire life to Claude in some crazy carpet the wiki and saying, fix my life. And Claude is suffering. He's so confused. So yeah, you're about to skip straight to level 3 just by watching this course, but there are so many levels to this at doing this well, right? I don't even know what I was talking about this. Yeah. I'm going to give you my dialed context structure setup in this course. You're going to skip to level 3. You're also going to get my Claude, which will basically set up this entire setup for you. It's going to be epic. That'll be in the next part. But first, Claude MD. What is a Claude MD? What does it do? How do you make a good one? Let's talk about it. So Claude MD is just a markdown file with the name Claude in all caps. It is just a text file. What makes it special is that when you title a file Claude in all caps, anytime you open Claude in that folder, it will reference this file first before it does anything else. And so this is useful because now we can spawn in different Claude instances and they sort of have this memory and instructions for working in that project. So you don't have to prompt it every single time. So really what Claude MD is it's a starting prompt that you don't have to type out. Basically, it's a saved prompt that's going to load every time you open that project. And so we want to put in here important context clues and instructions for working in that project. This will make sense in a second. Now, the best analogy that I've came up with this is a movie called 50 First Dates. Now, in this movie, this girl gets in a car wreck, and every day she cannot remember what happened any days before. So every day she spawns in, she has no memory of what happened yesterday. She remembers up to her 18th year of life, and then the rest every day is fresh. And so in the movie, the guy who ends up marrying her, what he does is he creates a little tape which fills her in every morning about who she is, what happened to her, their marriage, their life together. And then she's like, wow, this is who I am? She walks upstairs on the boat and she joins her family and she's like, wow, this is my life. And so before he made this tape, she didn't know who he was. She's like, who is this stranger? And it was awful. But he made for her a Claude MD so that when she spawns in, she knows what she's doing here, what her purpose is, and she can go about doing the rest of her life. So yeah, that is the Claude MD. That is the tape. So what do you put in a Claude MD? Here's the mistakes I see all the time. Dumping a load of junk in there, okay? Treating it like a long-term memory. Claude MD is not a long-term memory. It is just for some brief macro context about what it needs to get the output, right? So Claude does not need to know how you like your coffee, how many kids you have, or every team member on your payroll, and all this other junk, okay, for every prompt. It just needs to know, where does it find stuff when it needs something? What are the preferences of working with you? So like, what tools do you use? Your workspace preferences, how is it supposed to name stuff, etc. And then concise macro context on the big goal your system is a part of and who it's for. So for example, the GitHub for my application that me and my developers work on together, the Claude MD for the GitHub explains what type of code that we use, our like structure, who does what the different features are. It's literally like 1 page long for an entire application because we wanted to keep it concise because we don't want to tell Claude how to do its day. We just want to orient it about where it's at and what's going on and then let him work with us every single day and what we need. So I'm going to give you guys my own Claude. Like, don't worry, you're going to get mine. But I want you to know why I've made this one the way it is. And you should prune your Claude constantly. You should make this as short as humanly possible. Most people get Claude to write its own Claude. That is dope, okay? You're going to do that in my course, but you have got to prune it. He will put in there stuff that you do not want in every single instance of Claude that you're going to do from now on, okay? So just think about it. If you're not going to use it, if you're not going to use a certain line or instruction for every single prompt, then it should not be in your Claude MD, okay? Just put it in a separate file and refer to it whenever you need it. So here's an example of just a Claude MD. This is a YouTube course builder, like example thing. So it's like key context of like what we use, where everything is at, so what the folders are, and then the working rules. So here's some logs, here's some separate chats, whatever. So yeah, that's just a basic Claude MD. So context folder structuring. Here's a little like sneak preview of my proven structure. We'll cover this in depth in part 2, but let's go over some context structuring. So once again, we want to give the exact inputs to get the exact outputs. That is our goal. To accomplish this, we need to do 3 things well. Once again, we just covered context structuring. Now we're going to cover workspace setup, right? Here we go. Let's start by reminding you of your job with AI. Setting initial trajectory. So clarifying where you want to go is one of the most important things with AI. We are lazy. We don't want to do this, but this will give you the good results. Then number 2, realigning Claude to that trajectory. So making sure that he stays on track, pruning all the slop, keeping him in the right direction. That is your job. How? Well, we have to be able to work with Claude. How we do these 2 things right here is by improving the context clues, so that part of context, giving better instructions in the form of context, and improving the structure so that Claude can find these things easier and easier. And this is extremely hard to do if you cannot see what's going on in your project. And this is why, like, Claude Cowork was made for beginners. I want you to understand this. They have hidden everything from you. They care a lot less about helping you, really, and they care more about you being wowed by this technology so that you pay for it, which is, it's fine, but if you've made it this far in this course, you do not want to be average with AI, right? You want to be above average. And so if we want the insane edge that AI gives us, we need to go deep. We need to not just hide everything so that it's simple. We want to understand how the junk works. We need to see, we need to understand, we need to apply the human perspective to our projects. So, what does this mean? Essentially, we need a better file viewer. That's literally it. So if we were able to see what Claude was doing better, we would work with it a lot easier. And so right now, if you're not using a file viewer, how you would view Claude's files is in the Claude app, which is pretty inefficient right now, having a folder open, and then opening the text file in this ugly, hard to read form, okay? Or you can do the exact same thing inside of a file viewer like Obsidian or Anti-Gravity or Cursor or VS Code, where you can have the exact stuff, right? You can have Claude, you can have the file, you can have the folder structure in one window, and it looks incredible. That's all a good workspace setup is. So this is why we work in an IDE, which just means integrated development environment. It's really just like, it's kind of like a browser for your files. It's like using Google Chrome, but for viewing your files and working with Claude. Why are IDEs valuable? Well, they have a great user interface. That's the whole point, right? To make this easier for you to work with Claude. And they have custom plugins to make it fun. They integrate with AI models really well. And you have the ability to read, write, and edit files and folders easily. That is the value prop here, to give better context to Claude. So in this course, we're going to be using Obsidian. This is my personal favorite file viewer. That is because it is just the easiest, in my opinion, to edit files. It's got a lot of good core plugins. It's got some great community plugins. You can sync this with team members so that they can actually sync with your projects. And it's built around information, not code. And so I'm not doing a bunch of coding. I do write code, like Claude does it for me. I'm prompting Claude, and I find that this is easier than VS Code or something like that because I'm able to give it better context, really. But you can use whatever you'd like. It's all the same thing, right? VS Code, Anti-Gravity, Cursor. It's all about you being able to see what Claude is doing and help him do it better. That's it. So in part 2 of this course, the execution chapter, we're going to cover my exact setup. I'm going to give you guys literally everything of 500 plus hours of building, like how I set it up, how I build. But I wanted to explain kind of why we do this, why I'm giving this to you, and how I made it. So these are the principles that I used to make my workspace. This is regardless of whatever application you choose to do with, okay? Number 1, stay focused on output. No one cares how cool your setup is. No one cares about your Notion database. And they especially don't care until you've gotten insane outputs. Think about it. Elon's a trillionaire. And when is the first time you asked, I wonder what his Notion setup looks like? Or I wonder what his Obsidian setup looks like? Probably not, because people don't care about the process. They care about the value you put out. You care about his cars, right? His rockets. And so stay focused on output. Now, I still want you guys to try stuff out though, like have fun, but resist bells and whistles for the sake of bells and whistles. Make sure it's valuable. If something isn't adding value, meaning isn't helping you create better stuff, delete it. Because the goal is clean thinking and clean inputs to Claude, not a bunch of random plugins and crazy themes, right? Keep it clean. So yeah, that was workspace setup. Now there's one more thing to cover as far as principles, and this will help you fully understand everything I'm going to give you in the template section. And that is understanding different Claude roles. What is an AI agent? We talked about this in the Cowork Masterclass 2.0 inside of the free school. It is free if you want to check it out. If you're basic, you should probably watch that, but you're already deep, so let's keep going. An AI agent is basically this. It's the brain and model, so the actual code that reasons. It is context, and so how you prompt that code, what context you give him and what instructions you give him. And then it is tools. So what does he has access to do? So he can run commands, he can access different connectors, API calls, and then all of this happens inside of a loop. And so if you set a goal and you have the agent continue working until it actually gets that goal, that is kind of what makes it an agent. It's what makes it problem solve and think for itself without you needing to be in a loop. Spoiler alert, you still need to be in the loop, right? Like that is the whole point. But this is what makes an agent. And so, like I said, most people see AI agents, but I'll be honest, most of it is hype garbage. Like these people do not get many valuable outputs. They get a lot of clicks, a lot of attention on how cool their process is, but they're not actually making incredibly valuable stuff. Remember, boring process, incredible outputs is what we want. We do not want incredible process, boring output. We want to be providing value. And so beware of the people who are building an agent army and paperclip or whatever. No, that's not what we mean by this. But why is having these different roles or agents valuable? Like, why would you even do this? Well, remember, the goal is to get the exact inputs we need to Claude to get the exact outputs we want. And so if you have different outputs you want in different parts of a system, you want to give Claude a different role. So let's say we're trying to heal people, right? Well, we would want to have a doctor Claude for that. So a doctor-suited model, like a good brain, doctor context and instructions with a Claude, giving it a stethoscope and surgery tools, and then the doctor goal of what its goal is. Let's say we want to ride bulls. Well, then we would give that Claude a cowboy-suited model, probably I'm not even gonna make that joke, but probably a brain that's more for trucking through stuff than intelligence, giving it context for cowboy stuff, cowboy tools, giving him a lasso. Anyways, you get the point. By having separate Claude instances work on different specific systems in your build, you're able to get better outputs more efficiently. So instead of having all of this inside of one Claude and him getting confused, we separate it into different roles, different instances, different chats, and we're able to get better outputs. And once again, this tech is only getting better and better. And so you do not have to separate everything you do into a new chat. Honestly, you don't anymore. But I want to show you how to max out this skill so that when you get in a situation where you should be separating things, you'll know what to do, okay? So these are the different roles that I use. I do not use all the hypey tools. Mine is actually really, really simple. And I'm gonna show you guys how to use it in part 2, but these are my Claude roles. So the first role is Builder Claude, and he is using the best model I can get. He needs macro context of the full build, which is usually inside of the Claude MD. And I run this agent inside of the Claude app, typically Cowork or Code. Doesn't really matter, whichever one your preference is. I start a fresh chat every time I hit around 50% context window. And so I start a new Claude and I give him the exact same context every time. And you'll see in the execution phase how I do this using my daily logs. That's how I give him kind of some memory. And if I have to start a new chat, like a deep one in the middle of a project, I will have him write a handoff prompt, which is very simple. You just basically say, hey, write yourself a prompt for the next Claude, open a new Claude, give him the prompt. And the goal here is to keep the context clean. This is the main Claude. This is the one where we literally want to give him exactly what we need, nothing more. And he only needs context for the problem you're solving. So he doesn't have to know exactly every single detail of every feature of your app. If I'm just building the notes section of my app, I only want this Claude to really understand kind of what the macro app is for and how the notes feature fits into that so that he can build the notes feature. I don't want to go in depth on everything else. And so that is a skill, but you'll learn it. Okay, next is the research and VA Claude. So this is using a cheaper model, typically using like Sonnet, but he doesn't really need any context besides the initial prompt. And this is just a separate chat that I use for researching stuff, explaining things to me, helping me understand, creating context for the main agent to use. And so let's say I want to use a bunch of examples for my main builder Claude in like an email system. I will have this Claude read 250 short form scripts and then distill those into a 2-page list of email ideas. And then I'll give that list to the main Claude. So instead of that main Claude doing all this work in the middle of our project, I'll do it in a separate Claude and then just give him the output, right? I typically run this Claude in Obsidian, which I'll show you guys how to use in the Claudian plugin. Or if I'm working in VS Code, I will use the Claude Code plugin in VS Code. The main value here is keeping the main agent's context clean. So the goal of this research Claude is just to basically do low tiered tasks outside of the main agent so that I keep this one clean as possible. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I don't give him any extra context. It's literally just a Claude chat. Like I just open Claude app, do the chat, or open Claudian, start a new chat, and just ask him questions. And then last one is Crash Dummy Claude. So I build a lot of stuff for you guys, and I want to test it as if you were using it. And so I cannot test it using the Claude that I'm using to build it. And so I will start a new Claude instance in usually Cowork, because most of you guys use Cowork, and I will test it as if I'm you guys. I will have no fresh context. It'll just be the plugin that I've given it or the instructions I'm giving it. And I'll try to use a cheaper model because I know a lot of you guys will be trying to do a cheaper model. Also, I use this to test stuff for my application. And so in my application, I'm not using my Claude app. It is API calling, typically a cheaper model than Claude. And so I want to use whatever model I'm calling in the API to test it in a fresh chat to see if I get the outputs that I want. And so yeah, the value here is you're able to test your automations in real scenarios that your users will be using it in. Then you can bring back the feedback and give it to your builder Claude. This is how I made the Cowork Starter Pack. This is how I made the finance dashboard. This is how I made the second brain. It was using a crash dummy Claude to test stuff and then give the results back to my builder. So that's it, really simple. And once again, bro, you ain't that G yet. None of us are. If you can't make one Claude make you money, you can't make 5 Claudes make you money. Keep it simple. Once again, output over process. Do not do this just to feel cool, right? Start with one Claude and work your way up until you really need all these Claudes. It's crazy. So yeah, that is all of the 3 goals. You now understand the principles which underlie the entire actionable part of this course. I know this was kind of a long one, but I want to congratulate you. Like, you probably understand AI better than 0.01% of people when it comes to actually creating valuable things. So yeah, congrats. We are done with principles. It is time to have some fun and go execute. So yeah, just know that you need both, okay? I've been harping on tactics a lot here, but really you have to have both. Principles alone just leaves you in your head. You have to go do stuff. But if you don't do stuff with the understanding of principles, you're going to be confused when you don't get the right results. But if you have both, man, you get results. So it's time to go put these principles in actions. I'm going to share with you the latest and greatest tactics that I've found from helping 10 plus business owners automate real businesses, 500 plus hours, lots of helpful automations. Let's freaking get it. All right, welcome to part 2 of this course, execution. It is time to start building, my friends. I'm gonna give you guys my entire building process and the template, how I work with Claude, all the context structuring, literally everything. It's taken me 5 months of building and 500 hours of working with AI to actually perfect this setup and workflow. And I want you guys to judge it by the outputs, not how cool it looks. Like, what did it produce? And I managed to accomplish, honestly, some stuff that I've only ever dreamed of, including my first ever custom paid software with lots of paying users. Shout out to who bought the yearly package this morning. You're an absolute beast. But yeah, you can check out the app if you want to in the description to see just how legit it is. And then also tons of custom plugins, automations, client work. If you want us to build custom software for you and you don't want to do this yourself, then hit us up, the agency in the description. But yeah, custom thumbnail software, dashboards, client dashboards for my one-on-one clients, all kinds of amazing creations, all through this setup that I really think is incredible. And let's get straight into it. I'm gonna give it to you guys for free, no strings attached. There is one string attached though. If you're someone who skipped the principles section, I wanna warn you, you will not get the most out of this until you watch principles. I know that it's kind of boring, it's not shiny, but I cannot explain enough. This stuff did not just come from having a cool template and a good Claude MD. It came from understanding principles. So I cannot recommend enough you go back and watch it if you're someone who skipped it. But with that being said, if you watch principles, man, you are ready. Let's get right into the sauce. So what is included in this template? What am I actually going to give you today? Well, the first thing is my Obsidian/IDE setup. So how do I view what I'm working on with Claude? And this allows me to prompt him well, to see what's going on, to see what's causing problems, and actually fix the context so that he can get better outputs. The second is how I set up my Claude agents, how I work with Claude, like what does my workflow with an agent look like? Third, probably most importantly, is my folder and context structure. So how do I structure these projects cleanly to build these robust automations and have Claude work on it without having to kind of start fresh every single time, which leads to some ballin' context engineering, which is the whole point of this course. And then last but not least, the workflow. We're gonna go over 3 levels of how I go from start to finish with automations, depending on whether it's beginner, intermediate, or advanced. I'm gonna show you guys all of it. So even if you're a brand new person, this should be able to help you a ton. And all this with the goal of not to look cool, not to get internet points, but once again, to build ballin' systems with ballin' outputs. This stuff is built for value. I built it for myself, not to share. I built it to build things. And so I hope you guys get a lot of value from it. And also, a lot of stuff I'm gonna cover right now in this module, it will do automatically, but I have to explain how it works so that you can personalize it. You can make this template your own and really get maximum value from it, and you can understand, like we talked about in the principal module. So first up, my Obsidian/IDE setup. Like I mentioned before, I use Obsidian. I absolutely love it. I've tried like 10 IDEs, 10 different softwares, and I always come back to Obsidian just because it is the cleanest and easiest in my opinion. Here is how I set up my Obsidian. So if you just download Obsidian fresh, these are the settings that I change, but they're going to be personalized in my template already. So you don't have to change them. If you use my template, they're already there. So let's go ahead and take a tour of my Obsidian and kind of see what it looks like. All right, so here's the Obsidian setup. I'll run you guys through it real quick. We are going to do live builds with this, so you don't have to master this right now, but I'll give you guys a tour. So the only plugins that I really have enabled are some of the base plugins, so bookmarks and search. That's literally it. And then I have Claudian, which is enable you to have Claude on the side, and then also terminal. So I can spawn in a terminal and I can spawn Claude code if I want to work with Claude code on the right-hand side as well. And so if you're new to Obsidian, it really is just a file viewer and kind of a note-taking system, which makes it perfect for what we're doing. And if you're brand new, I have tons of other courses about this. It's not going to be a beginner course, but it's very simple. You can close the tabs here. I can close this. And so on my left-hand side, we have folders and we have the different files. And so I can click in the files. I can edit this stuff. And the way that I actually have this laid out is it has a translucent window on the appearance, which is what makes it look a little cool, but you can turn that off if you want and it'll look just same as normal Obsidian. But I've built this to be very, very simple. I just want to prompt Claude, and we'll go over the Claude MD here in a little bit, but this Claude MD actually sets up the entire project for you. You don't have to really touch any of these things, but this is my Obsidian setup. The only setting that I will change is if I'm going to be sharing this with my team. Also, I will automatically check for updates. That usually helps. But if I'm going to be sharing this with my team, I will also turn on Obsidian Sync, and then I will sync this to my Obsidian account, and it can share it with my team if I want to, if that's a project that I'm going to share. So yeah, let's jump back into the Miro board. So yeah, that is the Obsidian setup, and the way that you want to personalize this template to yourself, which I'll show you guys how to download the template here in a little bit. All you have to do is open up the template in Obsidian, make changes, and then whenever you go to do a new project, you just want to copy the folder of the template, and then just basically you have this folder that is your template. You can change that in Obsidian, and then whenever you want a new project, you just copy it, and it has all your settings. And if you want to actually see the settings, you just do Command-Shift-period in the folder to open up the dot files, so hidden files, and you can see all your settings in the .obsidian folder. But yeah, you guys can look that up. Second part of what makes this template so special is how I work with Claude. So what are the different agents that I use and what are their roles? First, Claude is just in the app. So I'm using Cowork or I'm using Code, and I will basically open up the folder that I'm working on inside of Cowork or inside of Code. So that's really it. And this is the main agent that I use. I use the latest and greatest brain usually because I have a good subscription. And then I give it macro context, usually inside of the Claude. I run this inside the app, like I said. And then I will start a fresh chat every completed subsystem or system, or if I hit around 50 to 75% of the context window limit. And if I need to kind of continue working on the same subsystem across different Claudes, I will have him check out the daily logs, which I'll show you guys how to use in the execution phase, and I'll have him write himself a handoff. So I'll say, hey, Claude, we're running out of context in this window. I want you to kind of write yourself a handoff for picking up with the next Claude, and it's super, super easy. And the entire goal here, like I said in the principles, is to keep this main Claude as clean as possible. I only want the context needed for solving the specific problem we're tackling. So if I'm working on my application and I'm working on the note-taking feature inside of my app, if I'm working with a brand new Claude agent on that, I only want him to have context around the note-taking feature and whatever he needs to make that great. So sometimes that includes a little bit of macro context about the whole app, but most of the times he doesn't need to know that. But let's say the notes play into a feature that we have with the actual video player inside of Signal. Well, he needs to know that context. And so it's all about giving it just enough that they need to solve that problem and nothing more. The second way I work with Claude is with like a VA slash research agent. So what I do is inside of Obsidian, like you just saw, I will spawn in the Claudian plugin, or I will spawn in the terminal plugin, and I will open Claude Code in terminal. Now this Claude I just use for doing research. I use it to explore different tools. So let's say I'm going to connect something through an API. I will use it to search the web and kind of summarize what different tools are out there. I will get it to build context for the main agent. So let's say that I'm building an email system and I want the main agent to take some email ideas and rough them out. If I want to take a ton, let's say I'm going to take like 200 past emails, I'm going to feed them to this VA agent. He's going to make me an idea document from all those emails to then hand to the main agent. So it's keeping the main agent as clean as possible. And so, yeah, you guys will learn how to do this with time. But basically, the entire point of this kind of research agent in the Obsidian is it can do these small tasks that I don't want to fill up the main builder agent's context with. So I'm working on a complex feature. I don't want to just start asking questions about this one API documentation in my main thing because I'm just clouding up the context. So I will ask the research agent to just, hey, I'm working on this. Go find this documentation. Give me a summary. Teach me about this thing that I don't know about. So it's like, walk me through it. And then I'll go back to the main builder. So super cool. Another thing here is you have to have Claude Code like installed on your machine. So not just the application, but Claude Code in terminal. And so there's tons of tutorials on that. Literally go to Claude Code website, copy and paste their bash command, open up the terminal app, and then paste it in, and you're good to go. Once you have that, you can open up Claudian, or you can open up Claude Code in terminal app in Obsidian. So like I said, this uses a cheaper model. I don't really give it any context besides just the initial prompt that I send in. And it's just for researching, explaining things to me, creating and curating context for the main agent, organizing files, renaming, moving them around the project. And I use it inside of whichever IDE I'm in because it's just so simple. And the value of this, like I said, is to keep the main agent's context clean, creating better context, better systems, better outputs. Claude number 3, test dummy Claude. So if I'm using an LLM inside of my system, so for example, the plugin I gave you guys for Cowork, the plugin I gave you guys for the Second Brain, the finance plugin, the system I'm creating is going to use the LLM that you have access to. So basically it's using your Claude. And so I have to make sure that it will work for you on your machine. And so to do that, I have to have a test dummy Claude. Basically, it's very simple. I just open up a brand new Claude chat in Cowork because that's probably the one that most of you guys are going to be using. I'll use a cheaper model and I will just test my plugin. I'll test my skill. I'll test my application, my automation, whatever. And I will not give it any other context besides the context that you would have. I want to test it as if I'm a user. And so, yeah, it keeps the build Claude clean. And I'm able to bring notes back in from the crash dummy Claude to give to the builder Claude to improve the plugin to then test it again. So that is kind of the workflow. Number 3, folder and context structure plus my juicy Claude MD. So if you've not seen the principles modules yet, what are you doing, bro? Go watch them. They're literally the secret to all this. But the way I've structured my context is with systems thinking in mind. And so at the top, we have archive. This is where I will just throw in old project versions or old context, or let's say I just have a big like research PDF that I don't want Claude to read every time, but I want to have it in archive and so I can reference it. I'll throw it in archive. It's just a folder of old stuff. Next, I have attachments. And so Obsidian can reference pictures throughout the notes. And so I store the pictures in attachments. And so anytime I bring a picture into Obsidian, it knows to just put it in attachments and then reference it in the note that I'm talking about. And then journal logs. This is so beneficial. And if you're not lazy with this, this will change the way you work with Claude. And I'll show you guys, examples here in a little bit. But as I'm building a complex thing with Claude and automation, I will take notes about what I'm learning, the tests I'm running, what failed, what did good, what I'm building that day, what are the problems are. And so that way, whenever I spawn in a brand new Claude instance, I can literally tell him, dude, go review the last 3 days of journals. We're still working on the same feature. Look at the open problems, and then let's just kind of get to work. So it allows me to prompt him with all some the the memory of the last couple of days without having to like re-prompt him every single time. It gives him a little bit of like short-term memory to get that context in faster. Then the build out folder is where we're actually working on these steps of the system. So inputs and then process steps and then the output. And so this Claude MD, once it interviews you on your project, it will create these folders for you. These are just kind of placeholders to show you what is inside the build out. But if I'm gonna build like an email system, I might have an ideas folder. So how do we come up with email ideas? Then I might have like a rough draft folder, which includes how Claude creates the rough drafts and us iterating on it. Then I might have like a finished draft folder, etc., or like an uploading folder. It's just the steps in the process. And the source folder is for when you're creating plugins or applications. And so if you're building an automation, you're probably going to work with Claude in the project folder. So it is the source. But if you're building a plugin that other people are going to download, or you're building an application which is going to be hosted, on a server on a website, I will put the like finished source in that source folder. So like the finished plugin version will be in that source folder. That way I always know like what I'm building and then what is actually shipped. Like what is the current live version? You'll learn that as you go. And something I want to explain is that this is a template. So every one of my projects doesn't look just like this. I've got small nuances. That's why it's essential that you get the principles and learn the skill of working with AI. This is going to take time. It is a skill, but hopefully I'm saving you hundreds of hours by explaining to you the good stuff of what actually works. So then we have important info. This is just a document where I save, passwords or things that I just need to easily find. And then lastly, we have the build process, which is just a good little reminder of how to build efficient and good systems. It's kind of like a very short synopsis of part of the principal modules. So it's really good to remind yourself where you're at and how do you build good stuff. Finally, the Claude.md. So how I've structured this Claude.md is really to help you get the best start to your project as possible. And same for me, because this is what I use. And so all it does is it basically says, hey, the user is going to build one of these three things: an automation, a plugin, or an app. So first thing we want to do is interview the user. So get the best inputs as possible out of the user, figure out what their process might be, like what they're thinking about, offer to help them do research. And then second is to poke holes in it. And so offer to review the plan that you just created. Third is to write the spec. So it'll go through and write like which tools we're going to use, how we're going to build this. 4, it'll build out the folders. So like I said over here, it will change the names of these to match whatever you agree on in your plan. Then it'll confirm with you. Then it will rewrite this entire Claude.md. So it'll rewrite the Claude.md with context of your project based on the answers that you just gave it. Super, super cool. I know it sounds complicated, but like I said, this is a skill. Just get in there, build with Claude. I'm gonna give you guys 3 different levels of difficulty to get you up to speed so you can do this. Speaking of the 3 different levels, let's go over how I work through these automations. Now, something I want you to understand is that it doesn't really depend on your skill level. It's more about the complexity of what you're building. And so I will use kind of like level 1 workflow if I'm building something that is very simple and doesn't require a ton of effort and thought. And so I'll show you guys what that looks like. Level 2 is going to be, an automation or a plugin or even an application that you're going to build over the span of weeks. So something that's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to require more iteration. This is what I think of when you're going to actually give things to your team or give these to your audience or sell these. So I had to spend weeks on the finance plugin because other people were going to use it. You guys are going to use it. I had to make it simple. I had to test the edge cases. I had to make it as valuable as possible with different features. And so there's different, features inside of the plugin that took me weeks to build. And that's when you would want to use kind of a level 2 setup and workflow. Lastly, level 3. This is something that you're going to work on for months or years. So I am like 5 months into building my first paying web application called Signal, which I absolutely love. And so I've learned a lot through this, and building something that users are going to use and like you're going to store their data, it requires a whole different level of work. It is not just building a simple Claude skill or an artifact. It requires serious iteration, serious thought, and that's when you want to use the maximum kind of level 3 workflow that I will show you guys. And what's funny is like level 3 systems are really just made up of level 2 subsystems. And so this application has like 25 different features that are each their own system that we had to combine together and do that in a way that's safe and user-friendly. So yeah, it's really tough to do. So level 1, like I said, it's kind of just for stuff you're exploring, or it's really, really simple. I don't know what that's doing there. So all you have to do is kind of just like use the Claude MD and rip it, which I'll show you guys examples. Level 2, how you do this is you're actually going to use my template. You're going to have Claude interview you. You're going to kind of build a V1 and ship it. And then the only difference between level 2 and level 3 is you're not going to do that much iteration. Like you'll test it out, you iterate it, but just because you're the one using it or your team's using it, it doesn't have to be perfect per se. Then lastly, level 3 is when you want to go all out. Heavy thinking, lots of pruning, keeping up with your journals, exploring different options, restarting everything over again. And I'll walk you through what a process looks like with this. But really, this is how you build amazing stuff, amazing systems with Claude. The first is, you want to get as deep as possible on the inputs, the process, the outputs. So getting as much thought as you can inside of the pre-build context. Like I said, we'll go over it. Phase 2 is building the V1, so just getting an output, even if it's not great. Like I said, watch the principles if you haven't. We go over these phases in depth. And then phase 3 is the big phase. It is iterating. It is making it work. It's pruning the context, rethinking the systems, rebuilding all the little subsystems inside of everything, starting over, struggling, thinking, rebuilding. I know you guys are probably like, hey, dude, this is a cop-out step. This is like great instructions here, but I can't show you this. Like you have to struggle through this. You've got to build these automations. There's no way I could tell you how to think clearly and struggle on a notepad with how to structure things. You just have to do it. You have to do it. So anyways, yeah. Then phase 4, leveraging your automations. We're going to cover that in an entire module. But yeah, those are the 3 levels of workflows. And like I said, we'll go over each one here in just a second. I'll give you guys examples. But some important reminders. Keep it simple. Iteration is the key here. Improving your process, improving your automations over time. And the good news is AI gets smarter and smarter, meaning like some of the parts of this process might not be necessary in the future because of how smart AI has got. But here's one thing I can guarantee you. You have to be the one who has creative, clear, and innovative thinking. You have to be the one who is guiding Claude, pushing, the agency, the human agency of like, I want to do this. How do we think outside the box to get this outcome? And over time, you should spend less time in front of Claude and more time in pen and paper. The better Claude gets, the more he can execute your vision. So the more you should spend time cultivating your vision. And that is a hard thing to do, but that's why I gave you guys the principles modules, because that's the only way I know how to think about it. And once again, the final reminder is what to build matters so much more than how to build it. So just like this is really cool stuff about building, but what matters so much more is like what you're actually working on. You could use the level 3 automations to build something that I don't know, just tracks something random that doesn't help anybody. I would highly encourage you guys to just try to build things that are as useful and valuable as possible. Solve problems that really are plaguing people and you want to solve. So with that out of the way, let's go build something. Enough yapping. Let's go build. Let's get in Claude. Let's get in the template and let's go do it. All right, welcome to Level 1 Automations. Let's start building some stuff. So here's the process for building these simple beginner automations. Also, if you've never even touched Claude, if you've never made anything with Claude, I highly recommend starting at level 0. I have a brand new Claude Cowork 101 course, completely free, goes over all these things about settings, use cases, skills, plugins, your first automation, usage, lots of bonuses as well. Go check that out if you're brand new. I'm serious. All this is going to make way more sense if you actually have a little experience inside of Claude. So check that out. It's in the school, probably link in the description, but if not, just search up Useful AI School. Now, level 1 automations. The entire goal of this level is just to build something kind of valuable with Claude, to test out this new systems thinking you've learned to build something cool. So let's do it. Here's the process. We're going to create a new folder, just like that. We're going to drag in my level 1 Claude MD. So not the entire template yet. We're just going to drag in a Claude MD file. Super simple. You're going to rename it to just Claude.md so that Claude actually recognizes what it is. Then you're going to open Claude Cowork, select that new folder. So like select the folder you just renamed. And then let's say get started. Then you're going to answer the questions and build with Claude. So let's go do it right now. All right, so step 1, we're going to create a brand new folder wherever you want to. So I'm going to call this YouTube Research Level 1. So now I have my new folder. I'm going to go to the link in the description of the school. It's inside a classroom, then go to Start Here, and then go to YouTube Resources, and then click on the Level 1 Claude.md. I'm going to download this. It says no preview available because it is just a text file. There's no pictures, but you download it by clicking the top right or clicking the big yellow download button. Then I'm going to drag that to my desktop. I'm going to actually drag this into our folder. I'm going to open the folder, and I'm going to rename this to just Claude.md so that Claude knows exactly what this is. Now the Claude app will actually register this as a Claude MD, all caps. So now what we're going to do, we're going to open up Claude and get to work. All right, so now that I have Claude open, all I'm going to do is select that folder to work in. So I'm going to go to choose a different folder. Make sure you do folder and not project. I'm going to select a folder, go to desktop. I'm going to select that folder we just made, which includes the Claude.md, which I gave you guys. I'm going to change this to act without asking because I feel like Claude is pretty safe these days. I'm just going to say, let's begin. And now what it's going to do is it's going to read that Claude MD that I showed you guys, and it's going to interview you about your first automation or your beginner automation, and then it's going to build it after it's done. It's going to create the folder. It's going to do everything for you. All you need is just a folder, the Claude MD, and then Claude. And like I said, this is for beginner automations, but this is the best way to start because you can always take a beginner automation and upgrade it to like a level 2 or level 3 if you find that it is really valuable to you and you want to make it more robust and better. All right, so Claude now has the first question for us. He says, what are you building here? I'm just going to build an automation. So basically I'm just going to work with it in Claude. It's not going to be a plugin or it's not going to be an application. It's going to be just a folder. So I'm going to say automation. Or plugin or an application, sorry. All right, the next question is what comes out of it. So it wants to know what is the output, what's the point, and what does the perfect version look like? So I'm gonna tell it to it real quick. I use something called Super Whisper. You can get the free version. I have links about this in my school. I'm not affiliated or anything because it's free, but you can check it out. Okay, Claude, so what I want to get out of this research automation is I want to give you a video idea that I'm working on, and then I want you to give me all the competing videos based on the keyword demand that you can find. And so we can probably use like the vidIQ plugin for this, or connector, I mean. And then I want you to basically to give me all the keywords around that idea that are doing well, then give me some tags for the video, and then also find some videos and thumbnails that are a little bit broader than the actual video that I'm doing. So find me direct competitors and then find me like broader niche competitors. And then based on all that data, kind of give me some YouTube titles and some thoughts about the thumbnails for my video. And all of this should be in like a nice HTML file as the output. Okay, so that is kind of some really rough, just giving it some stuff, but the better you give it on this context, the better you answer these questions, the better your output is going to be. I'm telling you guys, but this is a good way to start, just to make something get an output. All right, so Claude has taken that context and he has actually searched for some tools of what he could use. There's a connector called vidIQ, which I've already using, so I'm just gonna connect that. It's going to find the keywords. And say, what is your channel and niche? The input, when you bring me a video idea, what form is it? Okay, so let's do this. So I don't have any examples of research done before, but the idea that I'm working on right now is a full AI automations course using Claude. And so the value of this video is going to teach someone how to build valuable systems and get crazy outputs using Claude AI and using my templates. It's going to be a long course, so a couple hours long. It's going to be awesome. So that is the input. I want you to find kind of competing videos directly to that. that value proposition, and then also find videos that are just kind of in the general AI or Claude niche. All right, cool. So now we gave him a little bit more context and we'll see what he comes up with. All right, so he's asking a few more questions. He's wanting me to run the real research on your idea. I'm gonna say yes. Actually, we'll build the system first, then run it. How deep should the research go? I'm gonna go 15 each just to see if we can really juice this thing. All right, so now Claude is actually kind of taking this plan and he should be building the system. And so we should start to see some folders and things pop up. Like I said, this is level 1, so you really don't have to look at this at all. You can just kind of run the system and kind of get an output. And he's using this plugin that we found, but this is a little note here. In level 2 and level 3, you would want to do way more research about what tools are available. You might want to test different tools. Like, is vidIQ good, or should we use an API? Like, these are all decisions that you have to make as the system designer, because Claude's just gonna head in the direction you say. It's just like we talked about in the principles. Like how you start with Claude is so important because that's where he's going. Like it's autocomplete on steroids. And so you have to be the one to pump the brakes, to slow down and say, hey, let's actually test this. Should we use vidIQ or should we use the YTJS API or SuperData API? Like you have to ask questions, go deep. But like I said, for level 1, doesn't matter, but this is a point here. This is where like things differ from just rolling with Claude and actually freaking thinking about the system and building something super dialed. So as we can see here, Claude is actually building out the system in the forms of folders. These things don't matter much because like I said, you're not really going to use too much context and use Obsidian. You're just literally gonna build a system in here in a Claude chat. But you can check it out if you want. You can see kind of all the steps that it's doing. You can see the actual outputs, the HTML report. And so, yeah, let's see if he can get some decent outputs with a very, very limited context that I actually gave, bro. All right, so what he's doing now is he's actually rewriting the Claude MD. So the Claude MD I gave you was prompted to collect context from you, ask questions, figure out the build. But now that it's built, he's actually rewriting the Claude MD to have context about what you've already done and what it's built. It's pretty crazy, but it's really cool. Like I said, you don't have to know how this stuff works in level 1, but just know like that's what it's doing right now is it's actually rewriting its own Claude so that if you open a brand new chat with this folder, that Claude instance knows what's going on. It knows what the system is. It knows how to run the system, which is just really, really cool. And just like that, he is done and he actually has us an output. So here we have pre-built context, the template, the Claude MD. So I want to actually see this template report and see what we get. Let's pop that open and see. So keyword demand, direct competitors, broader niche, tags, there's the titles, thumbnails. Dope. So that's a pretty good looking template, I would say, to start with. So let's actually run this. So let me tell Claude. That looks great. I want you to actually run this search and get me an actually finished output on the course idea that I talked to you about. Cool. And while he's doing that, we'll talk more about how to progress your builds into each level and how to kind of work your way up to like a finished live web app that people can pay for. But this is why you want to start with Claude first instead of immediately building an app, is it allows you to go through and actually iterate really quickly. Because I can be like, oh, I didn't like that. Move the tags down or change the titles like this or do this before you actually make it into a plugin. Because once you make it into a plugin and then to an application, it's really hard to make these changes. But while doing it at this early stage just with Claude, you can dial it in and then wrap it into a plugin. And just like that, Claude has an output for us. So let's open up this research in Google Chrome and see what we got. Let's take a peek. All right, just like that, full Claude AI course. Okay, the read, keyword demand. Okay, cool. So we have all our keywords here. That's actually saves me so much time. Y'all have no idea how long that would take me to just type these in manually, come up with these based on every video. This already saves a lot of time. Here we have some direct competition. And so not bad. I don't like the formatting of the thumbnails or whatever, but it did find me videos that are competing with the video that I'm going to make that you're watching right now. How crazy is that? And so I've got about 20 of these, pretty cool. Then I have some broader niche competitors, so things that are just in the AI space. Once again, not perfect, but I do have some thumbnails that I can look at for inspiration and packaging inspiration from these videos. So honestly, you know, this is valuable. It's got tags for the video already. Amazing, super valuable. We have some suggested titles here and they're ranked based on kind of vidIQ. I don't love these, but some of these are okay, not bad at all. And then some thumbnail ideas. So here are some concepts on that. And so literally the automation is working. It is going from the input to an output and it is valuable. Now you can already start to notice the problem with level 1 automations. And this is why people, probably like yourselves, use Claude and you're like, you know what? This is cool, but it's really not life-changing yet. And that is because cowork hides a lot from you. Like it's hard to go through and read these. It's hard to change them. Like you can't edit the text. You can if you like click on the code, I think. Yeah, you can't even do that. You have to tell Claude what to change. You can't really see the structure. If you want to open this up in a folder, it's honestly not that much better because now you have to go through and sort through all these folders by clicking into them and then trying to edit with text edit. This is the problem. So level 1 is great for systems that you don't have to dial in, but it becomes a huge issue when you're trying to really iterate on something. And that's where the value comes because you need that human taste. And so what I want to take you guys through is we're actually going to rebuild this same automation, but using the level 2 process. That way we can compare the outputs and you can see just how much a little bit of tweaking and preparation can really change an entire system. And you're probably wondering, KJ, is this an automation? Like, don't you have to build these things and make and whatever? Not anymore, guys. AI does it all. So if I want to run this again, so let's say I have an input, I have a new video, and I want this research, all I have to do is click on new task. I just select that folder, and all I do is say, you know, all right, Claude, I want you to do research for a new idea. This video, we're gonna go over how to decrease the usage in Claude. So how to maximize usage as possible. I do that. It's using that folder, which has already written the Claude MD. It's already told itself what to do when I ask this. And then I just run this off. So I'm not going to, obviously, but that's it. That's the whole automation. It knows what to do. All you gotta do is select that folder when you want to run that automation and you're good. And in level 2, we'll talk more about this, but when you dial this in, that's when you create a plugin. In that instance, you don't even have to use a folder. All you got to do is go new task, and then you just unselect this, and you just choose the plugin called like, you know, KJ Thumbnail Research, and I can run it. And the cool part about that is you can then give that plugin away as a free value gift, like to your audience, or you can give it to your teams that your team members can run that and do research for you. So super cool. But let's move on to level 2. Hopefully you guys can see this is dope, but you can already see the limitations that level 1 has. Another important note on these level 1 automations is that if you were to go through and try to edit this system, you're now using a ton of usage because everything that you run in this chat, it's having to reread all of it. We learned about this in the principles section. And so if you're going to edit this, it's really hard to edit it and it takes a lot of usage versus using Claude and the app. So having a separate instance of Obsidian, not Claude, having another Obsidian using Claudian or using Claude Code and Obsidian, we can open up this folder and go get tactical. We can read the MD files. We can have another instance of Claude, change them and reword them, and then test it again without having to use a ton of extra usage. Anyways, I know that's complicated, but you will figure this out over time, I promise. But right now you should just build something. So if you have not built anything yet with Claude like this, I want you to stop right now. Don't go to level 2. Go download the Claude MD, open a new folder, run a new project, and get an output. Get something that is somewhat valuable to you, even though it's not perfect. And yeah, then you can move on to level 2. So I'll see you guys over there. All right, ladies and gents, welcome to building level 2 automations. Now, the goal of level 2 is to build something a little more complex, to have your hands kind of working with Claude a little bit more, getting used to working with Claude and Obsidian, having kind of 2 different Claude instances for different functions. This is the point of level 2. So if you haven't seen level 1, go watch that one. Do it first. It's pretty simple. Now let's get into level 2. So here's the process of building level 2 automations. First, you're going to download my full template, so the entire folder template inside of the school, which a link will be in the description, of course. You're going to unzip that folder on your desktop, so just right-click, extract here. Then you're going to duplicate that folder. I'm going to say that again. duplicate the folder. The folder is the template. You don't want to go into it unless you're trying to modify the template. If you're trying to make a new project, duplicate the template. It is a template. That way you have all my Obsidian presets. Anytime you want to start a new project, you just duplicate it. Then we're going to open that folder as a vault in Obsidian. Then you're going to be able to actually see that new project, that the template that you used. Then we're going to open up that folder also inside of Claude, and we're going to start building the automation, level 2. But this time you can see what is going on because you have Obsidian, and you can actually work with a separate instance of Claude to improve the context, to build things, to clean things up as Claude is working on the main application. And then we're going to kind of iterate this with one good iteration and see what we can come up with for level 2. So let's go build out that YouTube research automation again, but this time on a whole nother level. So like I said, first step is downloading the template. So you want to come to the classroom in my Useful AI school, click on Start Here, click on YouTube Resources, and then click on KJ Automation Template Folder. So it is a folder, so there's no picture, but you can download it by clicking the big yellow download button. Please just rewatch this and don't ask me questions. I get so many questions about this. Just click download or click in the top right on download, and boom, there you go. Now you have the zip file, which is just a folder that is compressed. Drag this to your desktop. I want you to right click and extract here. And so boom, just like that, we have the folder outside of the zip. You can now just delete this zip file. You don't need it, and you can download it again if you ever need it. So this is the project template. You can put this inside of your second brains in your project folder. You can put this wherever you have the things that you're building with Claude. Just stick this in there. And anytime you want to do a new project, it's very simple. You just right click and duplicate. That's it. Watch that again if you guys need to. Right click, duplicate anytime you want to start a new project. Now I'm going to rename this to the actual project we're going to build today. So YouTube Research Level 2. Awesome. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up in Obsidian. So I'm going to grab my Obsidian, and I'm going to actually go to Manage Vaults if you already have a vault open. I'm going to open folder as a vault. I'm going to choose that folder that I just created, so YouTube Research Level 2. I'm going to hit Trust Author and enable plugins, and I'm going to just do automatically check for plugin updates, which I think is just cool to add. And now we can see this project, which is really awesome. So now what's going on, if you're new to Obsidian, is I am actually inside of this folder in Obsidian. So here I can see all the folders, the subfolders. So like this is like what you see in the file viewer. Same exact thing as what you're viewing over here. It's just an easier way to work with Claude and to see your files. And so what I'm going to do is check out the build process, import info, all this good stuff. Now, before we actually start working with Claude, how we're going to make this level 2 better is I want you to spend some time really filling out the pre-build context. What I like to do is I'll actually fill in as much as I can in here, and then I'll go with a note, like a pen and paper, and I'll write out what I think the system should look like. I'll get really clear about what I want. Because like we talked about in the principles section, if you don't know what you want, it's very hard for Claude to read your mind and give it to you. But the clearer you can get on what exactly you want to see, the better Claude can make it. And that's why in level 2, we're going to spend more time than just a few questions answering it here. So now, how do we actually start building with level 2? Well, same way that we start with level 1, we just go and open up Claude. But before that, like I said, if you're wanting to use Claude in here to do like the research and VA tasks, you can do it just by popping open Claudian, or you can click over here on the terminal and you can spawn in a terminal instance and then type in Claude. But make sure that you have Claude Code downloaded, the actual CLI. So like I said in the original overview module of the execution, go download Claude Code in your actual terminal app. So this will be able to give you both of these options to work in Obsidian. So let's go start up this project. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Claude Cowork or Claude Code, whichever one you like, they work the same. I'm going to basically turn off all my connectors to start with, and I'm going to choose this brand new folder we made to work in. So I'm going to go to Desktop, choose Research Level 2, and I'm going to say, let's start, I guess is what I'll say. Now, this is the exact same way that you start with Level 1. The same exact thing, same process. The only difference is I want you to spend some time researching on your own how you should build this thing. So a couple examples are, what tool are we going to use to actually find the YouTube videos? And so something that I might do is I might come inside of Obsidian here. I might open up this Claudian and I will say, I'll just do this. Hey Claude, I'm going to work on this build here in a second, so I don't want you to start the build quite yet. But what I do want you to do is figure out what are the different ways that we could actually pull YouTube videos and find YouTube videos. Is this like through an API, or is there connectors? Like, how can I basically search YouTube by using Claude to do it for me inside of an automation? So I might spawn this off and do some research on that. And it's actually not connected, great. So I have to start a new conversation, try it again. But you get the point. I would actually, so there we go, we're actually building now. What I would do is I would send that prompt off of like, hey, I want to actually go research this before I start. That way I can fill out this pre-build context better. And then I would spawn in another instance and I'd be like, okay, Claude, I want you to, let's work. I want you to figure out like, how can I find keyword demand? Like, what tools can I use to figure out where demand is on YouTube? I would spawn that off. And so I would do research to fill in this pre-build context. And that is the difference. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna fill out this project. I'm going to just work on it for like, a couple hours. And then we're going to see the difference in a level 2 automation and a level 1 automation. And I'll kind of show you what I did and what the project looks like. So yeah, let's go do it. All right, so I now have kind of the level 2 of building this YouTube packaging research automation. The first thing I wanna do is I wanna show you the output. So if you watched level 1, you saw the level of output that we had from the level 1 system. Here's level 2. So here we have a little bit cooler looking thing off the rip. We have its like big title, which is honestly a way better title than the last ones. We've got kind of some thumbnail things here, and then the best kind of golden competition. Who had the best video that's similar to mine? We've got the keywords most relevant to me, so it kind of separated the keywords into most relevant to the video and ones that aren't relevant. Next, we have the competitor section. Wow, these look way better as far as just like, the formatting looks better. Also, I have the ability to see which ones are outperforming the other videos on each channel. So like this video is a huge outlier for this channel, which is really cool to see as well. Also, these videos look like they're a lot more on point than the original level 1 automations videos. So these are a lot more accurate. Pretty cool. And then we look at the broader inspiration. So there's actually a lot more here. They're in this smaller format, which is nice. And they're separated by what type of broader it is. So this is just the Claude AI. So broad as far as Claude is concerned. Then we have AI automation is just the keyword there for all of these. And AI automation agency. So all of these are fall in that bucket. Overall, this is way better inspiration. So there's a lot better inputs for me to come up with thumbnails from this Claude output. So overall, we're already off to a way better start than level 1. Like I said, I'll show you guys how I did this in a little bit. And it looks really cool. And I can actually click on any of these videos, I think. Yeah, I can click on them. They'll open on YouTube. Pretty dope. Next section is title elements and ideas. So I really like how it's done this by talking about the different elements of titles I can use. Then it gives me some titles based on my voice. So it actually knows how I like titles, which is huge. This is like a big, these titles are way better. Like go back and watch level 1, look at the titles and look at these. These are a lot more like a KJ video. I might even use literally some of this, which is awesome. Experiments worth testing. So Claude actually gave me some out of the box titles that aren't like mine that could be worth looking into or stealing inspiration from. And then which ones vidIQ like the best. We have some tags pretty similar to the other one. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But overall, way better output, like way better. Like I said, it looks similar, but it's not about the looks here. Like, why am I building this automation? It is to come up with the best packaging for the video you're watching right now. So what I can guarantee you is I will be using what you see right here to make the title and thumbnail that you just clicked on, which is crazy. So this is very valuable to me, and it's a lot more valuable than the last one because these are a lot more accurate to the video I'm trying to make, and it gives me better insights, and I can make better judgments on my own stuff. So pretty cool. Now, how do I do it? How do we build this level 2? Well, this is what the Obsidian looks like. I know it looks a little crazy, but I promise, don't worry about this. I built this in one day. So here's the pre-build context. I took time to really answer those questions. So instead of just firing off like a couple short prompts to Claude like we did in level 1, I actually took the time to sit down and figure out, what am I building? Why am I building this? What do I want to see come out of the system? What does a perfect output look like? Like, why am I doing this? What is a process that might work? Also, what I did was I tested out different things. So these are like, I tested like, where's a good place to search these videos? Do I use the vidIQ MCP, Superdata, or YouTube JS? I tested different tile variations based off of my own skill. And I did all this and putting it into these different folders. So this looks complicated, but the only difference here, seriously, the only difference is that I took way more time to fill out the pre-build context. I know that sounds crazy, but that's literally it. The closer you can get to where you want to go, like, or the clearer you can get the output for Claude of what you want, he can help you do the rest. And this log, I just kept manually. So I literally said like, okay, what input will I give Claude? And what is the output I want out of this system? Like, what do I want to see? And so by clarifying that, I came up with questions like, should I use vidIQ or should I use Superdata, or is there something else I can use? And so guess what? I spawned in Claudian and I asked it, hey, do some research on what kind of tool I could use to find these videos. So it's all about spending time to really make things clear, building the system with Claude, as opposed to level 1 where we just let him make assumptions and run with it. Now we actually got a lot clearer. And so yeah, that is really cool. And now if I wanted to make this into a plugin now, I could, because I think it's really dialed. The input is literally just, hey, Claude, here's an idea for a video, do the research. The output is this amazing document, which literally does all the work that used to take me 4 hours at least a video, maybe even 8 hours a video, and now does it in minutes. And it does it better than I did, which is absolutely incredible. So yeah, this is ready to then make into a plugin or automation. We'll talk about this in the leveraging your automations module, but just know like this is when you get to the point where you're getting really good outputs with just a, files and Claude, you're ready to actually package this into a plugin that you could give to other people, and you can test that plugin first and then give it to them, and they can do the exact same thing for themselves. So yeah, let us move on to level 3, where we really get deep on the crazy automations and building full applications. All right, welcome to the final level, level 3 automations. Now the goal of this is really the end goal of everything we're building, to build something valuable with multiple features, subsystems that you can eventually sell or give away like I do to people like y'all, so that you can use them and create value in your life. Like this is really kind of entrepreneurship 101, but it's online. So it's online building valuable solutions using the tools that we have. This is like max level. So let's get into it. The process for level 3 for setting up is the exact same as level 2, right? You want to download the folder template. You want to unzip it. You want to then copy and rename it. So if you haven't watched level 2, go watch that. I won't redo it again. Then you're just going to open whatever your renamed project is in Obsidian, and then open that in Claude, and you're good to go. So what is the difference between starting at level 2 and level 3? Well, level 3 is you really want to fill out the pre-build context in depth, like do some serious thinking. When I build level 3 automations, I mean, I'm like literally on a whiteboard, like mapping out stuff, testing out different processes, because I want to start in the best way possible. And normally I don't start by building a level 3 automation, honestly. It starts out as a level 2. And then once I decide that, man, this is really valuable, I should like build this out into a plugin or like a full app. Like I will then transition to level 3. So a good example we'll look at here in a second is my finance plugin. I built that for myself. It was not a plugin. It started out as just a simple automation. Then I realized, wow, I could build this into an artifact. Like, let me actually step this up. It became a level 2 project. Then it became a level 3 project. And I was like, man, this thing is in depth. I worked on it for over a month. It has different features. I'm ready to package it up into a plugin and give it away to you guys. And so, yeah, you don't really start as level 3. Start it off as level 2. Fill out that pre-build context as much as you can, but don't get too narrow thinking. Like leave some room for Claude to kind of poke holes and stuff. And then you start off by, once again, opening up that project in Claude as a folder, and then just running, say, let's get started, do whatever. Now, here's the difference between level 3 and level 2. It's really on the back end. It's learning how to work in Claude, like in Obsidian with Claude, and changing the context, like pruning the context, iterating. There's a reason why there's so many software engineers, but very few of them are billion-dollar founders. It is not the technical ability. It is the judgment and the clear thinking and the ruthless iteration to simplify and to make things better and to focus. That is something that I cannot teach you. I can make you aware of how important it is, which is what I hope this course has done, but I can't teach it to you. So I want to make you aware of it. I want to give you examples of how I've started doing this in my life and the things that I've built. And then I want you to do it yourself and to learn this skill. So with that being said, let us dive into what a level 3 automation actually looks like behind the scenes. All right, what you guys are seeing right now is my Signal application. So this is a real application that is live, and we have paying users on this thing. So shout out to you guys who are actually subscribed and doing this using our app. But it is dense. I mean, we have everything here. Billing, we have a big settings. There's so many features on this app, and I'll show you kind of what the core feature is, and that is to help you go from just a basic problem that you have that you want to find videos on to having a ton of perfect videos for you. So I'm just going to do audio to learn. Oh, hold on. That's the developer tools. Let's try this now. I want to learn how to do YouTube thumbnails really well for my YouTube channel. And so I want to learn how to use Photoshop, what other tools I could use to just make better thumbnails, to get clicks and get more views and help more people. So I'll just throw that off and we'll spam that here. And so I'm just going to say some experience, how deep you want to go. Let's just go deep. And then it's going to reading your goal. So now this application that I built is going to give me this brand new project and give me videos to help me learn. It's like YouTube, but on steroids for people who learn. Yeah, pretty cool. So I'm gonna show you guys how I built this entire application, how I did the UI for it, the actual player UI, all that good stuff. It took a long time, took months. But this is what a level 3 project really looks like. So yeah, the input was I had a problem I want to learn more about, and then the system, the output, presents me these videos that I can then save to my project, so I can click on them and save them. And then it'll actually download the transcripts and kind of give me summaries and stuff for them. And then if I want to watch these videos, I can do it right here inside of the Signal app. And once again, you guys do not have to use or download this. It's not supposed to be a sales pitch. Honestly, I'm more focused on my agency stuff right now, which I'll show you guys that in a second. So if you guys want us to build you custom software, me and my incredible team of engineers, if you're a business owner, hit me up. I'll build you everything we're talking about for a really good price. So, book a call here if you actually want that. But back to Signal, I want to show you guys how I made all this stuff. You can literally do different notes. I can add notes in here. I can do different sections. I can uncheck these. I can skip directly to this section. I have the ability to change the speed. I have the ability to see a summary. I can control the player from the notes. I can see more from this channel. This is a full, live, big, paid application. So that's what I'm saying. This is what we're building in level 3. It is a lot, but hopefully you guys can see how cool this is and you're excited. So let's go take a look at how I did this. So as you can see here, this is the actual files, the context, the project of Signal v3. So on the left, you can see the archive, the journal, stuff like that. And then we see the process of going from the first step. So context to query, and then filtering batch 1, all this you don't have to know about. But this is how deep it can get. And so if you see my journal of building this one feature, you can see my brainstorming, which was all of my doing all the research beforehand for this one feature. So the feature that I'm building here is literally talking about just how to go from an input, someone has a problem, to literally finding, ranking, creating tons of results for people can filter through. So I won't go deep in all this because honestly, it won't help you guys, but here's what it looks like. It's me every day, putting out my thoughts for version 2, iterating, testing over and over again. And so from going from context to query, I have tons of variations of just this skill. And I won't show you because this is literally the money maker is what I make money from. But it's figuring out, how do I go from that one step? So we talked about in principles, this is where the principles get extremely useful because otherwise you're going to be very confused watching this. But if the input is user has a problem, And the output is we give them every single video that's going to perfectly solve their problem. The process is what we're building. How do we get there? How do we get from input to output? How do we make that output better and better and better? And so this is how I'm doing it. The first step is literally taking their context and creating search queries to then push into APIs. So figuring out, what API do I use? What queries do we actually create? How do I give the skill to Claude or whatever LLM I'm using in the application to actually create those queries? Like I said, I can't show you because this is my moneymaker, but this is me testing it out over and over and over again. And then once I actually have the results back, like how many videos do I collect? How do I filter them? And that's where the second step comes in of like the filtering batch. And then how I actually test this before going to application is I literally have it give me like a result. So like here's the actual report, the filtered report. And so I'm doing the main value of the application without it being in the application. And so here I can have it do an HTML where I say, hey, this is the input. I'm a copywriter. I want to get clients through cold outreach, but I don't know how. Boom. Now I'm able to see clearly how the algorithm that I've programmed and how Claude is ranking these videos. And I can see which ones that it's cutting off and not showing. I can see all the ones that it's bringing in. So this is behind the scenes of what's going on in the application. And here I can iterate it. I can get really like in the weeds. This is what I'm trying to, the only value I'm trying to give to you guys by this is just showing you like there's levels to all of this. And if you're gonna make something that's really, really valuable, you have to spend a lot of time on even the simplest sounding feature. And so that's level 3. It's going deep. It's taking days to iterate and redo and prune and try again and all this good stuff. And then I had Claude give me a customer view so that I can see how it actually shows these videos in the project to a customer. So if we go back to this project, this is using the exact same skill right here. So what it's showing here is what it's going to show me in the HTML. But instead of having to like push this to a live application, I can test just the algorithms right here on my computer and then send it off to my software engineers who actually implement all this. So super cool. I also tested the refresh feature. So I'm like testing like how much does it refresh? Which ones does it refresh? If they click refresh, like what happens at the top? And how does it actually choose which videos to show? It's really cool. And so all this is what it looks like to really go deep in level 3. But like I said, you will get here over time. I just want you to understand how to work with Claude in the app and in Obsidian, how to see what you're working on with Claude so you can actually read it, understand it, and then make changes. And you can see all this in here, brainstorming, old skill, questions to answer, test notes, problems to solve. You have to dig deep. You got to understand. And then also, don't be lazy. Take time to keep a journal of what you're learning each day so that your thinking is clear. And then Claude, whenever you spawn him in, you can just say, hey man, read day 2. I want you to check out day 2, and then let's start working on these problems at the end of day 2. And so yeah, hopefully this is valuable. I know it seems like a little bit confusing, but that's the whole part of level 3, man. Like this is building billion-dollar software. Like it's really hard to explain in a course, but hopefully I've given you at least some nuggets, or I've changed the way that you think about this stuff so that you can build these better. But like I said in previous ones, in level like 1 and 2, you work up to level 3. These are things that you want to spend months and years on, but just start with level 1. Move on to level 2. When you're ready, you will naturally progress into level 3, and you'll use all these features from the template. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. So now I'm going to actually go take a look at how you leverage these things that you're building. So I'll see you guys in the next module. All right, so how do you actually leverage these automations to bring them to the market and to create value, to generate leads, or to make sales, or do whatever you want? This is the most efficient progression that I found for bringing these things into the market. So the first step is starting with just an automation. So this is you with a folder in Claude. We just talked about this in the previous modules about the different levels, but even when I'm designing an application, I start with just an automation, just project files, just me and Claude working locally on my machine. That is because when you start to worry about the user interface and other people like kind of using it, and like how to actually wire up the coding on a live site and implementing it where it doesn't frick with your existing features on an application, things get messy. But when you build it locally and you get the exact outcome you want, the exact output. Talking about systems, when you get the desired output, that's when you can go ahead and move on to productizing it. And so I highly recommend that you iterate heavily locally, just with HTML files, just with getting the output you want with Obsidian, with Claude. And then once your value proposition is dialed, like the core thing you do, the core thing your automation does, that's when you can package it. You can make it into an application. You can make it into a plugin. And that brings us to step 2, the plugin. So when I'm doing things for Signal, just like you saw with this like kind of Signal, the new algorithm, what I'll do is once it's dialed locally, I will package it up into a plugin. That way I can send it off to my team or my friends or beta testers, and they can see what are the results without having to have a finished application yet. And so basically, the cool part about this is you have people can test it without it needing to have any kind of UI. And so the only thing I care about in this one feature of Signal is someone has a problem. How good is our application at giving them the exact videos they need to solve that problem? That's what I want to figure out. And that's a complex problem if I'm really going to solve it. And so by making it into a plugin after it's done locally working, I'm able to give it to more people who can test it, and not just me. People with different problems, different perspectives, and they can tell me how good the actual algorithm and the decisions were from the system. And so the cool thing is real people, test it. Now to lead this phase is real people actually use it. So I know, we all have friends and family who are gung-ho on checking out our cool stuff. But before you make something into an application, I highly recommend that people actually use it a lot. So people actually use your stuff, not just test it, but they use it in their daily life. That's a good sign that, I should build this into an application, and I should actually charge for this and actually spend the time putting this, deploying it, getting it live, doing the safety and stuff. Now, I'm extremely blessed. I have a team of engineers. One of them is an incredibly talented ex-Google engineer. Shout out to you, Caden. He finally quit his job at Google to do this kind of stuff full time, which is amazing, and working with other companies. But he does all the back end to keep these things safe. So I will warn you, when you go to do an application, do not charge people for it until you have made this thing super, super safe and you actually know what you're doing on the software, scalable side of things. And if you want to hire us to do it, we just started our brand new agency. We're launching it officially this week, 780. We will build you amazing software like you've seen that we've already built for ourselves here for your small business. We're really excited to do this. I'll be doing kind of the business thinking, and I'll have engineers implementing it, making it safe, and building you custom software. So yeah, there's the sales pitch for our agency if you are interested. Link in the description. But yeah, that is the best way I found to leverage these things. Start with just a project, like a folder in Claude, move to a plugin, get other people to test it, see if they actually like it and use it. And then if they do, start moving it to an application. So come up with UI, build the branding, wire everything up to happen on a live site. And then you can actually, send it to people, charge it, and make some amazing value, builds, and make some money. So yeah, that is how to leverage your automations the best way that I've found. All right, let's break down one of my favorite automations I've made in recent months, which is my finance plugin. So I released a plugin which helps you do your finances from start to finish in Claude, helping you with everything. And it's pretty awesome because I did not think a finance video would get any views, and it's actually doing incredibly well because it's not just a video. I'm giving away a solution, an actual automation I'm giving to people for free to solve a real problem. And you guys' comments and emails have been incredible, so thank you so much for that. But I'll show you guys how I did this. How did I actually manage to build this thing so that people can get this software inside of their Claude and it work for every single person, it have all the amazing features that it does. How did I do this? Well, let's dive into the project and let's take a look. All right, so now we were inside my finance plugin project. So you can see this is kind of like an older version of the template that you guys got in this course, but this is actually, I made a lot of strides learning how to make this template through building this plugin. So here we can see my Claude MD. It's very simple. It's just explaining this is the plugin that I'm trying to create. This is what I'm doing. This is my workflow. Here's what the plugin is supposed to do. Here's how we're going to work on it. And then whatever the heck this is, I didn't even write that. You just did that in here. And then the folder structure layout. So pretty simple. Then some rules here. that I just came up with as we were working on the thing together. But what I would do is these are the source folders. And so this is like all the skills in the plugin. So I told Claude, hey, I'm going to make a plugin, but I want to be able to see the skills that you're actually working on before you package it into the finished plugin. And so that's what the source folder is for in the template I gave you guys. It's for seeing like what the actual version you're working on, all the files in here so that you can actually edit them instead of them only being inside of the Claude app, which is hard to edit. So what I would do is it would give me the plugin. So I would like see the plugin here. I would download this into my Claude and then I would run it. I would test it as if I am a user, as if I'm one of you guys. And I would test different cases and edge cases. And then what I would do is I would just continue to make notes of like what was going wrong and what I needed to change. And then I would keep, like you see all these tests here, like it's so messy, but real projects just get messy, guys. I would build the dashboards in HTMLs before I even I would just test it with test data before I even did the artifact. And so that's what I would do. And so from start to finish, really, I just wrote out a big like pre-build context of the purpose of this dashboard, what the features were. Like I thought through all of it really before I touched Claude. And that's the secret. That's the kind of thing that everyone's scared to say. And I'm kind of scared to tell you guys, but you are the edge. You are the alpha. Like you've got to think about what you want. Claude just builds it, which is really, really cool. And he's a good thinking partner. But the reason why I feel like people have liked my stuff is because I did the thinking for the dashboard. I used it in my life. I figured out what features were useful to me and my wife with our finances. And then I came back and would build a brand new version. I literally start from scratch and be like, all right, Claude, here's the process I think is going to work. Here's what we should do. I wrote out like, what are the elements that we want? So the template, the setup flow and questions, like how I literally wrote these out by hand of how should the flow go for someone actually setting up the system. And this is all written by hand. And then I had Claude actually go and implement it to make it the actual plugin. Here's a handoff prompt. So I will show you guys an example of that. I was halfway through working on something and I was like, all right, Claude, we're running out of context. Write yourself a handoff prompt so that we can open up a new chat and keep working. And then a bunch of sample data for testing it, screenshots. Yeah. And that's how I finally got to the finished plugin, which has these different skills. So 3 different skills. I explained to Claude how the skills should work. I gave references for how the dashboard should look like inside the plugin. I made sure and I read all of these skills just by hand. Like I literally go through and read every line to make sure Claude isn't getting something wrong or adding something that shouldn't be in there. And yeah, so I mean, it took like over months of working on it and testing it to actually build a plugin that was worth giving to you guys in the video. But this is what makes these things worth it, guys. Like it is not simple building scalable automations that actually add value. If it was, we'd all be millionaires. But I just want to encourage you to take the time to dig deep, go through every single subsystem, every single step of input to output, figure out what is Claude doing? How do I make this better? Research tools, research how you can solve problem in different ways, find better examples, do all that good stuff, and you'll be on your way to making some really, really cool plugins. And so yeah, basically the workflow for this was, like I said, work in this Obsidian with a Claude cowork chat, and then we would build a plugin, and then I would open up a new cowork chat where I would download the plugin, and then I would test it in that fresh chat, take away I'd make notes on a notepad of like the things that were wrong. I'd go back to the builder Claude and I would tell it, hey, these things were wrong. Re-edit the plugin inside of the source. I would read the source files to make sure it got the changes right. Then I would say, okay, ship this into a plugin. It would package up to a plugin and I would repeat. I'd give that to the test Claude, see what went wrong, take notes, fix it, package a new plugin, repeat. And this is what I did over and over again to make this finance dashboard. So hopefully that makes sense and helps you guys. But yeah, let's move on to another automation overview. All right, so welcome to this plugin and automation that I set up for one of my one-on-one clients. And so he's a custom home builder and he wants to figure out how can I give blueprints to Claude and get an actual takeoff and estimate on the other side of things. And so I won't show you all this because this is his project. So I want to keep it, proprietary to him. But basically how we built this is we started by just having a project in Obsidian with Claude. And so it started out as not even a plugin. It was just an automation. And we said, hey, Claude, here's some blueprints. Here's the process we think could work. So we know that we're going to have to give you a couple of variables like the formulas and what the current prices are. And then we want you to kind of take the blueprints, apply the formulas, the prices, total everything up and give us a takeoff and estimate. So like I said, I'm sorry I can't show you guys, but this is like one of their builds. And so yeah, that's what we did. From there, once that worked, we made it into a plugin so that he could test this in his Claude and basically like run takeoffs on his own to see like what was going wrong and what we needed to fix. And then once it looked good, we made this into an actual artifact so that now everything has some UI to it. He can easily change the variables here instead of having to answer in Claude. He can start a new project. He can go through the measurements, formulas, all that stuff, and then get the output that he wants, which could save, honestly, a lot of hours per week because this stuff sucks manually. But yeah, Claude's now helping out, which is really, really cool. Also, I want to teach on, if you guys want, we actually just launched our agency for this. We are now offering to build custom software and automations for small business owners. So through doing the one-on-ones, I learned that not everybody has a deep passion for AI and systems like I do. Like I love it. I figured everybody loves it, but not everybody loves it as much as I do. And so we decided that launching an agency would be a great addition to the market to fill the hole of people who just want to pay us to build really complex and amazing custom software and like AI agent stuff for them. So if you're a business owner, you're watching this, you're like, dude, frick yeah, like I'll just pay you money. You build this stuff to make my business better. Then book a call with us here and we can get to work on something epic for you, which is super cool. So hopefully we have slots by the time you're seeing this. But yeah, that's what I want to encourage you guys. If you do want to get some client work done from us, this is just a plugin, but we obviously build things way more professional when it comes to like real applications. So yeah, check that out. But let's move on to the next project breakdown. All right, welcome to the breakdown of my actual real live scalable paid application. So this is the first app I've ever built, which has like real paying users on it who are getting value and subscribing every single month, which is just amazing. Honestly, a dream come true. And I'll show you guys kind of how I built this. So we went over in level 3, how I built like the core value prop algorithms and like what happens behind the scenes. So I figured in this module, we'd look at how I built the UI and how things actually operate and how we came up with
Hi everyone.
this UI and, basically how I built the app to make it look the way that it looks. So this is if you're like just viewing it as an outsider and you haven't signed up yet. But let's take a look at what it looks like when you've actually signed up and can use it. So this is like the home page. On the home page, you can add different topics. So mine is very simple. It's RuneScape and Claude. And you can click on different topics and add subtopics. So if I want to look at like Claude skills, I can type that in here. It'll then change the search. And I can go through and see all these videos, like a custom YouTube algorithm for me. I can sort them based on views or upload date. I can add a brand new topic. So I'll add something like US World Cup. Do that. So shout out to the American gang. Hopefully we win going into next week. But yeah, I can search this and it will then just bring me all the best videos for myself by doing that. So super cool. I can add these videos to different projects. So the entire goal of this app is to learn. And so I have all these different projects for learning about YouTube thumbnails, or actually there's one I was working on a lot, which was YouTube lighting. And so figuring out what to light. So I lighted this intro by learning from this stuff, which is pretty cool. So these are the videos that are inside my project that I actually saved to them. I can save them by just clicking on this button. And so everything you see here, I spent a lot of time designing exactly how it looks. And so that's what we'll kind of cover how I did that right now in this project. So this is the Signal V2. This is how I designed all of the things you see here. And so the way that this project works is I create the HTMLs, the designs, and I hand them off to my developer, Caden, who works with me with our agency and with this app. And he actually puts them into the live application. And so what I'm trying to do here is just to get the actual looks right. Like that's the whole goal of this system, is to get the UI. So I have a separate project and system for getting the things to work. And this is how I get to actually look cool. And so what I do is every single page has its own folder. So it has its own kind of sub project. And then in there, I just work on the different versions of what I'm looking at, what the goals of the homepage are. And so I want Claude to know, like whenever we're working on the homepage, I want it to know what the point of the homepage is, what the point of the player is, what are the features. And so this is just a different way to structure your projects. Also, I have the design system. So like all the things that make Signal's branding are in here so that Claude can reference. And so if I want to design a new like page, or I want to iterate a page, what I'll do is I will spawn a new Claude instance. He knows in the Claude MD like what we're doing here, what the purpose of Signal is, what the folder structure is, like our tech stack. And then I will just say, hey, we're working on the homepage today. I want you to look at the homepage folder, look at the homepage goals, look at where we left off on V3, and then let's start working on changes for V4. That's it. I'll literally start and then hand it off to Caden whenever the thing is done. And so then I'll pull up the HTML. I will go through and test different things. So I'll test like the brightness of the chips. I'll test what like the one-click UI looks like. So whether it's a chip or if it's a ribbon or a magnet, I will just iterate on each little part of the feature like crazy. And when I find something that I like, what I'll do is I will get Claude to say, all right, I think this version is done. What I want you to do is to create a handoff for Caden. And so based on the Claude MD, it knows who Caden is and what the purpose of this workspace is, and then it writes a handoff. So it will tell Caden, hey, here's the V3, here's what your Claude should do. And so what Caden does is he takes this into his Claude and actually builds it on the live site, which is epic. Now, I also do build applications like without other developers. And so the way that you do this is you literally just hand this off to another Claude that is connected to your GitHub that actually builds the app. If you guys want a full course on like building applications, that is a whole different beast. But let me know in the comments or let me know in the school if you want that. And I might can convince Caden, my Google developer, to actually teach you guys the real sauce, like the back end stuff that no one talks about on YouTube. I can show you guys how to make these graphics and branding and features and UI and all that jazz. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in, I guess, the next course. All right, so last thing I want to say to you guys is thank you so much for watching this. I hope this course has been insanely valuable. If it is, and you want me to keep these things free, then please send this to your friends. I really just want to share as much knowledge as God has given me as possible. I consider myself to be extremely blessed beyond belief. God has blessed me more than I could ever even say. I mean, just the fact that he sent his son Jesus to die for me, for my sins, and how broken I am just grateful every day to be alive. And I'm so honored that he's allowed me to make this stuff free for you guys. All I ask is that you share this with somebody and help them get value from it as well. And a couple of last things of encouragement is this. This is a skill. And just like how you cannot make a course on like a basketball or make a course on carpentry that's going to immediately give someone thousands of hours of skill, the same thing applies here. If you're seeing some of this course and you're a little discouraged about how complicated this is and everything, I want you to know, I didn't touch Claude 6 months ago. I had no clue how to use AI. I cooked my usage rate in about 2 minutes of using Claude. I did the dumbest stuff. Trust me, I made dumber mistakes than you can make, but that was the whole point. I made mistakes quickly. And so if you want to learn this stuff, if you want to be a master of AI, like we have to put in hours. So just build stuff, have fun. Don't get caught in perfectionism. Build, and you will get better. You'll learn how these machines work. You'll learn how you work and how you can prompt them better. So I hope this was encouraging. If you like this course, then share it with somebody. Don't comment or don't like. Just share it. Share it with somebody who this could help. And I will see you guys in the next one.